Chapter 76, Master. Chapter 76, Master. Oh, it's you. Yemo. The man called Brother, who immediately recognized Yemo, since he had seen his photo countless times. He didn't even bother to think before turning around and throwing a punch. The wind force of the punch was mainly focused in the direction of Yemo. Yemo knew that this brother, who was just as he had thought, a master, and he wanted to test how strong his power was. So he only threw a punch in response. Crack! The sound of bones breaking resounded in the room. Yemo took 2 steps back and reached the door. Meanwhile, Brother, who fell 2 steps back too, and rammed onto the young Master Tan. With the clash of the fists, both of their fists had bones fractured. Yemo's eyes grew cold as he realized that his power actually didn't mean much in this place. Although he had only recovered 70% of his power, there definitely was plenty of people much stronger than him. Yellow level tertiary stage, Brother, whose eyes were filled with shock as he spat out the 4 words. However, since the bones of his hand had broke, he didn't dare to keep fighting with Yemo. He didn't have the ability to recover bones like Yemo, and, although he was able to cultivate inner chi, broken bone injuries required about a month to heal for him. Seeing that Yemo and Brother, who were even, young Master Tan showed a sliver of worry in his eyes, as he didn't expect Yemo to be this strong. Actually, he had never seen anyone more powerful than Brother Hu, and he had even heard that Brother, who was a disciple of the ancient martial arts. Since Yemo was able to block one of Brother Hu's fist, there was no way that he wouldn't be shocked over this. Although he didn't know what yellow-level tertiary stage meant, Yemo thought it was probably how the levels of martial arts were called here. Young Master Tan saw Yemo's power and was about to take his phone out to make a call. But since Yemo already knew that he was from the Song family and came here to capture him, he didn't have any thought of being lenient and threw out a metal nail casually. Before he even finished dialing the number on this phone, the metal nail had struck young Master Tan in the forehead. You actually killed young Master Tan. Brother, who had shock and anger in his expression. Yemo smiled faintly. I also killed Song Shaowen. What? Do you have a problem with that? Brother, whose eyes immediately went back to normal as he thought. Yeah, he had even killed Song Shaowen, so he would have no more pressure in eliminating Song Shaotan. If you can answer a few questions for me, perhaps I can let you go today. Yemo stared coldly at this Brother Hu. Haha, let me Hu Chiu go? You didn't even have the upper hand before. Since you came today, don't leave. Hu Chiu's healthy hand took out a whip from somewhere and immediately jumped up. The whip in his hand turned into a flurry of images and rushed towards Yemo. It was so fast that, looking at the countless whip's images, Yemo didn't dare to go in. If it had been before he had treated Ning Qingxue, he would be able to take on the whip forcefully. But now, although he had recovered 70% of his strength, his chi was still a bit unstable. Yemo understood his situation right now and immediately dodged. However, the room was too small and his back was whipped. A burning sensation came, and Yemo knew that he had shed at least a layer of skin with that blow. It definitely brought out a gash that wasn't shallow. Seeing that his whip attack had succeeded, Hu Chiu pressed on. He almost turned his body immediately as the hand swirled towards Yemo again. Yemo had to admit that this brother, whose whip technique was really good, he was forced to recognize that he could only dodge in this small room, which would put him in a disadvantaged position. So in that case, he might as well charge straight in. Yemo gathered some chi again, and at the same time he threw out 3 nails while preparing to grab the popper of the whip. Hu Chiu was shocked. He didn't think that someone would dare to even try grabbing the popper of his whip in his flurry of attacks. You're asking to die, Hu Chiu sneered as the whip in his hand attacked faster. The countless shadows of the whip made it impossible for people to see clearly. 3 nails had shot over, but Hu Chiu had already felt it. He also understood that Yemo wanted to trade damage for damage, and unless he retreated with his whip, the nails would hit his body. Hu Chiu sneered. Trade damage for damage? He actually didn't take back the whip in his hand and just sidestepped his body. One of the 3 nails was dodged while the other 2 hit accurately on the side of his left chest. Hu Qiu took 2 nails and still didn't take the whip back. He knew that Yi Mo was powerful, so he took 2 nails just to be able to land a whip attack on him. The power of his whip was tremendous and very fast too. Not only was he absolutely confident that Yi Mo couldn't grab it, but he also felt that Yi Mo would definitely be seriously injured after that. That damage wasn't something that 2 mere nails could compare to. However, Hu Qiu wasn't a cultivator, so he didn't know something like spirit sense existed. By the time he reacted, Yi Mo had already accurately grabbed the popper of his whip. A strong power passed over. Yi Mo felt his chest pulsed and immediately knew that it wasn't good. Although he grabbed the whip, the side effects of treating Ning Qingxue had come. He even felt a fit of nausea. Yi Mo knew that he couldn't hold on for long and didn't dare to drag it out. While Hu Qiu was startled, he focused the last bit of his qi and kicked Hu Qiu's chest. At this moment, Hu Qiu finally realized that Yi Mo could find the real whip amongst all those shadows and grabbed it, which made him wondering if he was a dark level master. You're a dark level. Hu Qiu pointed at Yi Mo and spoke these few words before spewing out blood from his mouth like crazy. Then he collapsed and was dead before he had even reached the ground. Yi Mo gave out a long sigh of relief, thinking that today was too dangerous as he had almost lost his life here. He still wanted to capture this brother and ask him about some things. But it was already the 2nd time that he had overestimated himself that night. There really were powerful people everywhere in this world. It was just that he hadn't met them yet. According to Hu Qiu's words before his death, there might even be a level higher than his so-called dark level. Yi Mo could feel a fit of dizziness coming and walked out holding on the wall. In the room not far away, there should be the son of Qian Long Tu, Qian Shiping, who was assaulting those 2 young girls. Yi Mo kicked open the room and pulled out this Qian Shiping. Who are you? How dare you? Qian Shiping was pulled out in his dreams. He was startled for a moment and looked at the weak-looking Yi Mo. He thought of his situation and was immediately about to rage. The person who kills you. Yi Mo gasped for breath. Kicking open the door was quite burdensome. Kill me? Ha ha ha, do you know who I am? Kill me, and you will have nowhere to hide even if you flee throughout the entire country. You think. Qian Shiping was still being arrogant until a metal nail pierced his forehead. He still didn't believe as he died that the person in front of him would dare to kill him, since his dad was Qian Long Tu. However, his consciousness had already begun to be obscured. Yi Mo didn't dare to waste any more time. He felt that he was becoming weaker and weaker, so he walked into the underground floor and, as he saw 3 people still kneeling down, he shot out 3 more nails without hesitation. The 3 didn't even have time to react before they were dead. There was still another room with 2 people, but Yi Mo didn't bother with it. It was probably Qian Shiping's underlings. Leave quickly! That was the only thing in Yi Mo's mind. He took too much risk for one day. He hadn't expected Hu Qiu to be that strong, even stronger than he had thought. If that Hu Qiu wasn't too confident in his whip, it was questionable if Yi Mo would even be able to walk out today. Chapter 77. Hesitant Yunbing. Chapter 77. Hesitant Yunbing rubbed her fatigued eyes as her mind wandered elsewhere. Ever since the thing that had happened 8 years ago, she had always been unwilling to return to Beijing, and her boyfriend also left her due to that thing. However, the one who assaulted her was still roaming free in Beijing. Even the 7-year-old Ting Ting was taken away forcefully by their family. The reason she hadn't slept for the whole night was that her boyfriend from those years ago, Feng Rong, came back from America. 8 years ago, after that thing happened, he had never appeared again. Afterward, when she knew that he went to America, she was really hurt at the time since he had left without notice when she needed him the most. However, today he actually came back and requested her to come to Beijing. She had seen it when she opened an email on her computer earlier and realized that it had been sent by Feng Rong. He explained to her that he didn't even know what had happened to her at that time because the next day he had been sent to America by his family and he wasn't able to contact her again. Now, the first thing he did when he came back was to find her and even had to ask for her email address from other people when he came back to Beijing. He told Yunbing that no matter what had happened, he wouldn't mind and that he still loved her. When Yunbing saw Feng Rong's email, her first thought was to delete it, but seeing Feng Rong's love in his words, and that she might still have feelings toward her first love, Yunbing hesitated. She was scared of the person who assaulted her those years ago, and if Feng Rong still loved her, he could have taken her to America, and she would have left that nightmare behind. If she hadn't known about the misunderstanding with Yi Mo last time, she would have perhaps gone to Beijing, but she felt guilty. Yi Mo had saved her, and she wanted to say thank you in front of him at the very least. However, she had never been able to even catch a glimpse of him since that encounter in school. Although Su Jingwen told her that Yi Mo was on bad terms with a major power and couldn't show himself, Yunbing kept fantasizing that she would be able to see him once in Ninghai. Otherwise, even if she left Ninghai, she would still feel unrest at heart. Another reason she still didn't want to move was that she didn't want to remember the traumatic memories. She felt scared toward Beijing from the bottom of her heart. Now that Feng Rong came back, should she go or not? Although she still resented him, since he said that he didn't know, and the first thing he did when he came back was to look for her, it made Yunbing feel that she was still remembered. After all these years, she had become a forgotten corner. Although her cold personality gave her fewer troubles, every time she came back home, she felt lonely in her cold room. She would reminisce the small things in her first love. However, was it really true that Feng Rong did not know what had happened? Even if he didn't, did his family not tell him? And not a single message in 8 years. How was this possible? Yunbing suddenly didn't want to think about that anymore. After thinking for a long while, Yunbing sighed. She eventually decided to have a look at Beijing. After all, Ting Ting was still there. Although she was very scared of that person, sometimes avoiding wasn't necessarily the best solution. She opened a file and prepared to write a letter for Su Jingwen to give to Yi Mo. When Yunbing opened up a file, the bottom corner of her screen showed a news. She was about to close it when the image that her eyes saw seemed familiar. Although it wasn't clear, Yunbing still felt this was familiar. She immediately opened the news. Ninghai Master, Shering, crushed the trainer of the Korean-style Taekwondo club. The flashy title and the images below stunned her. She really felt that that person looked like Yi Mo, but his face wasn't clear enough. And the name on there was Shering, not Yi Mo. Although Yunbing didn't really care about things that happened at the school, she still heard about the Korean-style club, but she was already past the years of raging adolescence, so she only took notice of it and left it there. She didn't think that a Shering would suddenly appear in Ninghai and beat that Pu Dongheng with only one move. Usually, Yunbing would leave it there after reading it, but this Shering looked a bit like Yi Mo, so Yunbing immediately logged onto the news page of the university. At this moment, she finally understood what popular was. Looking at the time, it was 4 a.m., but the forum was still full of people. The top post had been clicked over 1 million times already, and there were thousands of replies at the bottom. The title was very clear, Shering, our handsome man. Every time she refreshed, there would be more comments. Okay, I'll admit I admire Shering, but I guarantee that I'm not gay. Carrying the SH asterisked bucket into the dining hall. 1. I'm sure that Brother Shering is the strongest in Ninghai. Sitting on the grave, smoking the loneliness. Wow, let me tell you, I have a personal signature from Brother Shering. Get jealous. Clear water. I was happy I had a place to stand. Shering, I'm really in love with you. What should I do from now? Who is changing the mark on my epitaph? Who captured the recording? Recording our Brother Shering like this. I heavily object. wearing underwear. There were actually thousands of replies below. Yoon Bing didn't read all of them and just opened the video at the top. The scene where Yi Emo fought Pu Dongheng immediately showed. Obviously, this was HQ recording. Pu Dongheng's face was very clear, but Yi Mo's face was always slightly obscured. The fighting scene was very short. Within a clash, Pu Dongheng was kicked flying. Yoon Bing was stunned seeing the clip. Although it wasn't very long, she felt that this person was Yi Mo. But why was it that in the same recording, Yi Mo's face was always obscured, but other scenes were very clear? Looking at the time, it was already 4:40 am. Yoon Bing couldn't sit down anymore. What if it was Yi Mo and she had missed this opportunity? Thinking about this, Yoon Bing quickly got downstairs and drove the car toward the Ning High Technology University. It was in the morning, and there were still cars on the road, but not much, so Yoon Bing took a shortcut and didn't see anyone on the road for a long time, and decided to drive very fast. However, a stumbling figure on the side of the road almost crashed into Yoon Bing's car, and from her rear mirror, she saw that figure fall onto the road after she had driven her car past. Although she was sure her car didn't touch that person, Yoon Bing still drove back and opened the window. "Are you okay?" The person on the ground didn't answer. Using the dim yellow road lights, Yoon Bing saw the blood on this person. She was shocked. Did she actually bump into this person? Fearing that she crashed into someone, Yoon Bing quickly got off the car and helped the man on the ground to get up. However, when she saw this person's face, Yoon Bing was truly frightened. The person that was laying in her arms was Yi Mo. How did he become like this? The clothes on his back were ripped, and there was a long gash in which the bones could be seen. His face was very pale, and at this moment, Yi Mo had his eyes closed. He was obviously unconscious. Yoon Bing became worried. Although she didn't know how Yi Mo became like this, she knew that Yi Mo's condition was severe. She quickly dragged Yi Mo into the car. Yoon Bing's first thought was to drive Yi Mo to the hospital, but Su Jingwen's words rung in her ears again. Yi Mo was on the bad side of a big power and had nowhere to hide, so he ran out of Ninghai. If she sent him to the hospital now, would that person know? Notes: 1. Those are the usernames of the people on the forums. Chapter 78. Whose Blood? Chapter 78. Whose blood? Yoon Bing was sweating profusely until she finally managed to drag Yi Mo into her room. Luckily, it was 5 a.m. and was pretty much the darkest period before dawn. No one in her district got up that early, and therefore no one had noticed her. Although she didn't know who Yi Mo got into conflict with, she still decided to park her car in the parking so that people wouldn't suspect her. She carefully closed the door and parked the car before coming back to carry Yi Mo onto the bed. She reached out her hand and touched Yi Mo's nose, and there was still warm air coming in and out, so finally, Yoon Bing was able to rest her heart as she thought that he should be just temporarily unconscious. She got a tub of hot water and decided to wash Yi Mo. After she had taken off Yi Mo's first layer of clothes, she arrived at his underwear covered in blood, but ended up being too embarrassed to take them off for him and didn't even dare to look. She grabbed a towel and covered it, and only then did she dare to help clean Yi Mo. The wound on Yi Mo's back looked very severe. Yoon Bing couldn't imagine what could cause such a deep wound. Although Yi Mo's wound was very deep, his muscles were extraordinarily strong. If Yoon Bing didn't see Yi Mo's firm muscles for herself, she wouldn't even believe such a quiet-looking Yi Mo would have this body of muscles that looked so aesthetic. Yoon Bing felt her face blush, and the hand she used to wipe Yi Mo with was shaky. She had never had the experience of seeing a man's naked torso. Even when she had been her asterisk pet and became pregnant 8 years ago, she was drugged and unconscious. However, her family was so scared of that family's power that with just one sentence, they didn't dare to allow her to abort the child. She didn't blame her family because they indeed couldn't mess with that family. Even now when she thought about it, Yoon Bing felt shaky. She was really scared of that person. so she kept hiding in Ninghai. Even for the new year, she didn't want to return to Beijing. The instant Emo had collapsed, he knew things weren't good, and with his strong will, he forced himself to wake up. However, the person he saw when he opened his eyes was actually Yunbing. Although he didn't have a good impression of her, he knew that he was countless times safer in Yunbing's hands compared to the Song family. Emo relaxed and closed his eyes once again into unconsciousness. However, his body was starting to use his spirit qi to recover his extremely fatigued and damaged to the root body. "You're awake." Yunbing, who had the towel in her hands, was startled as she saw Emo open his eyes, so she called out in surprise immediately. However, she then saw that Emo fainted once again. Yunbing quickly carried the water away and went back to the room to cover Emo with blankets before she breathed a sigh of relief. Since he had woken up once, it should mean that he wasn't in a critical condition any longer. Yunbing, who hadn't slept for the night, also slept beside Emo's bed. When Ning Qingxue opened her eyes, she discovered that the sun was already out. She laid down and didn't move. Was this heaven already? She didn't feel any pain on her body. On the contrary, she even felt extremely comfortable. Ning Qingxue gasped a sigh of relief. She was finally rid of that endless abyss of pain. She just didn't know if Emo was well now. But soon, Ning Qingxue felt things weren't right. She was still lying on Emo's bed, and everything in the room was as they used to be before. Nothing was different. What was this? Ning Qingxue bit the tip of her tongue and felt pain. Did she not die? Ning Qingxue, who was worried in her heart, sat up immediately and once again found out in surprise that all her wounds had healed. She didn't feel any bit of discomfort on her body, and instead it was filled with vigor and spirit. The little case! Ning Qingxue grabbed the little case and checked inside, but nothing had disappeared. Everything was here. Wait. She remembered clearly that last night she grabbed the knife and was about to commit suicide. So why was the knife still in the case? Did she lose her memory? This was definitely impossible. Ning Qingxue examined the case and everything inside closely, and she discovered that one bottle had 2 less heart protection pill. She had counted each and every pill multiple times, so she couldn't be wrong. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt scared. She had been injured seriously. How could she heal up in one night? Besides, she clearly remembered she had the knife in her hands and was about to commit suicide. She even remembered the feeling of having pierced in something before she had lost her consciousness, and yet, why was she all right without a single wound? And why did she still feel pain? It wasn't like she had died at all. Ning Qingxue turned around and saw on her bed that there was indeed a few drops of blood, but she was sure she didn't have a wound that bled on her body. So where did this blood come from? Mom. As soon as Ning Qingxue opened her mouth, the door was opened. Ning Qingxue's mom Lan Yu rushed in. "Qingxue, are you all right?" Before Lan Yu even came in, her voice sounded. She didn't know what had happened the night before, but she had suddenly fallen asleep and slept all the way until 7 or 8 in the morning. Lan Yu almost couldn't forgive herself for her mistake. Qingxue, how did you sit up? Your face. How is it so healthy? You're all right now. Qingxue, you really are all right. Lan Yu already forget that Ning Qingxue had been severely injured and recovered in only one night. In her eyes, it was meant to be that her daughter got better. As for the process, she ignored it automatically. Ning Qingxue saw her mother and knew that she wasn't dreaming and didn't die either. She really did recover, but as for how, she didn't know. After Lan Yu had said all these, she grabbed Ning Qingxue and finally started to think how her daughter got better without any reason. She had been severely wounded, and thinking about this, Lan Yu immediately asked, "Qingxue, what happened to you? How did you recover?" Ning Qingxue shook her head. She didn't understand either. She seemed to have the blurred memory that someone came and treated her last night. But who could cure her serious injury in just one night? "Mom, I want to think alone for what had really happened." Ning Qingxue suddenly said. Lan Yu was elated now. Although her daughter's recovery was full of mystery, she still rather would believe that her ancestors protected Qingxue than believing this was impossible. Seeing that Ning Qingxue had said this, she still closely examined Ning Qingxue's back before finally being relieved. I'll cook some congee for you. You should rest some more. Don't move around too much. After her mom had left, Ning Qingxue started to think carefully. She wasn't as optimistic as her mother. There was definitely someone who treated her injuries, but who could have so much ability to cure her completely while she was asleep. This was something even the Hong Rue Hospital couldn't treat. Suddenly, Ning Qingxue sat up. Since someone treated her last night, didn't that mean her top was taken off? She quickly took off her clothes and looked. It was as she thought. Her face immediately went pale. Her top was taken off. Even her bras were buttoned wrong. Since that person could see her back, it meant that her chest was also seen. Who is this? Ning Qingxue suddenly felt her body starting to shake. She would rather die than let someone, who she didn't even know, look at her body. Ning Qingxue looked at the few drops of blood on the bed. That wasn't hers, so whose blood would it be? Was it from the person who treated her last night? Chapter 78. Whose Blood? Chapter 78. Whose blood? Yunbing was sweating profusely until she finally managed to drag Yemo into her room. Luckily, it was 5 a.m. and was pretty much the darkest period before dawn. No one in her district got up that early, and therefore no one had noticed her. Although she didn't know who Yemo got into conflict with, she still decided to park her car in the parking so that people wouldn't suspect her. She carefully closed the door and parked the car before coming back to carry Yi Emo onto the bed. She reached out her hand and touched Yemo's nose, and there was still warm air coming in and out, so finally, Yunbing was able to rest her heart as she thought that he should be just temporarily unconscious. She got a tub of hot water and decided to wash Yemo. After she had taken off Yemo's first layer of clothes, she arrived at his underwear covered in blood, but ended up being too embarrassed to take them off for him and didn't even dare to look. She grabbed a towel and covered it, and only then did she dare to help clean Yemo. The wound on Yemo's back looked very severe. Yunbing couldn't imagine what could cause such a deep wound. Although Yemo's wound was very deep, his muscles were extraordinarily strong. If Yunbing didn't see Yemo's firm muscles for herself, she wouldn't even believe such a quiet-looking Yemo would have this body of muscles that looked so aesthetic. Yunbing felt her face blush, and the hand she used to wipe Yemo with was shaky. She had never had the experience of seeing a man's naked torso. Even when she had been our asterisk pet and became pregnant 8 years ago, she was drugged and unconscious. However, her family was so scared of that family's power that with just one sentence, they didn't dare to allow her to abort the child. She didn't blame her family because they indeed couldn't mess with that family. Even now when she thought about it, Yunbing felt shaky. She was really scared of that person, so she kept hiding in Ninghai. Even for the new year, she didn't want to return to Beijing. The instant Yemo had collapsed, he knew things weren't good, and with his strong will, he forced himself to wake up. However, the person he saw when he opened his eyes was actually Yunbing. Although he didn't have a good impression of her, he knew that he was countless times safer in Yunbing's hands compared to the Song family. Yemo relaxed and closed his eyes once again into unconsciousness. However, his body was starting to use his spirit chi to recover his extremely fatigued and damaged to the root body. "You're awake." Yunbing, who had the towel in her hands, was startled as she saw Yemo open his eyes, so she called out in surprise immediately. However, she then saw that Yemo fainted once again. Yunbing quickly carried the water away and went back to the room to cover Yemo with blankets before she breathed a sigh of relief. Since he had woken up once, it should mean that he wasn't in a critical condition any longer. Yunbing, who hadn't slept for the night, also slept beside Yemo's bed. When Ning Qingxue opened her eyes, She discovered that the sun was already out. She laid down and didn't move. Was this heaven already? She didn't feel any pain on her body. On the contrary, she even felt extremely comfortable. Ning Qingxue gasped a sigh of relief. She was finally rid of that endless abyss of pain. She just didn't know if Yemo was well now. But soon, Ning Qingxue felt things weren't right. She was still lying on Yemo's bed, and everything in the room was as they used to be before. Nothing was different. What was this? Ning Qingxue bit the tip of her tongue and felt pain. Did she not die? Ning Qingxue, who was worried in her heart, sat up immediately and once again found out in surprise that all her wounds had healed. She didn't feel any bit of discomfort on her body, and instead it was filled with vigor and spirit. The little case! Ning Qingxue grabbed the little case and checked inside, but nothing had disappeared. Everything was here. Wait. She remembered clearly that last night she grabbed the knife and was about to commit suicide. So why was the knife still in the case? Did she lose her memory? This was definitely impossible. Ning Qingxue examined the case and everything inside closely, and she discovered that one bottle had 2 less heart protection pill. She had counted each and every pill multiple times, so she couldn't be wrong. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt scared. She had been injured seriously. How could she heal up in one night? Besides, she clearly remembered she had the knife in her hands and was about to commit suicide. She even remembered the feeling of having pierced in something before she had lost her consciousness. And yet, why was she all right without a single wound? And why did she still feel pain? It wasn't like she had died at all. Ning Qingxue turned around and saw on her bed that there was indeed a few drops of blood, but she was sure she didn't have a wound that bled on her body. So where did this blood come from? Mom. As soon as Ning Qingxue opened her mouth, the door was opened. Ning Qingxue's mom Lan Yu rushed in. Qingxue, are you all right? Before Lan Yu even came in, her voice sounded. She didn't know what had happened the night before, but she had suddenly fallen asleep and slept all the way until 7 or 8 in the morning. Lan Yu almost couldn't forgive herself for her mistake. Qingxue, how did you sit up? Your face. How is it so healthy? You're all right now. Qingxue, you really are all right. Lan Yu already forget that Ning Qingxue had been severely injured and recovered in only one night. In her eyes, it was meant to be that her daughter got better. As for the process, she ignored it automatically. Ning Qingxue saw her mother and knew that she wasn't dreaming and didn't die either. She really did recover, but as for how, she didn't know. After Lan Yu had said all these, she grabbed Ning Qingxue and finally started to think how her daughter got better without any reason. She had been severely wounded, and thinking about this, Lan Yu immediately asked, Qingxue, what happened to you? How did you recover? Ning Qingxue shook her head. She didn't understand either. She seemed to have the blurred memory that someone came and treated her last night. But who could cure her serious injury in just one night? Mom, I want to think alone for what had really happened. Ning Qingxue suddenly said. Lan Yu was elated now. Although her daughter's recovery was full of mystery, she still rather would believe that her ancestors protected Qingxue than believing this was impossible. Seeing that Ning Qingxue had said this, she still closely examined Ning Qingxue's back before finally being relieved. I'll cook some congee for you. You should rest some more. Don't move around too much. After her mom had left, Ning Qingxue started to think carefully. She wasn't as optimistic as her mother. There was definitely someone who treated her injuries, but who could have so much ability to cure her completely while she was asleep. This was something even the Hong-Rue hospital couldn't treat. Suddenly, Ning Qingxue sat up. Since someone treated her last night, didn't that mean her top was taken off? She quickly took off her clothes and looked. It was as she thought. Her face immediately went pale. Her top was taken off. Even her bras were buttoned wrong. Since that person could see her back, it meant that her chest was also seen. Who is this? Ning Qingxue suddenly felt her body starting to shake. She would rather die than let someone who she didn't even know look at her body. Ning Qingxue looked at the few drops of blood on the bed. That wasn't hers, so whose blood would it be? Was it from the person who treated her last night? Rate translation quality, no comments. Be the first. Chapter 79. Was it Yi Mo? Qingxue, you're all right? A voice full of surprise sounded at the door. Li Mumei just pushed the door open and came in, and behind her was the still beaming with joy Lan Yu. Even Su Jingwen was here with the two nurses behind her who looked at Ning Qingxue in disbelief. Come in. Ning Qingxue focused her mind. Although she was still distressed, she decided not to think of it for now. What happened? Qingxue, let me look at your back. Li Mumei had seen Ning Qingxue's wound before. Now Ning Qingxue suddenly recovered. Although she didn't understand, she was still genuinely happy. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, No need to look. I can feel it. I'm really better. I don't know what happened yesterday. She originally wanted to say that someone had cured her last night, but when the words came to mouth, she swallowed it down. Although Lan Yu had examined her, she still wasn't sure and went behind Ning Qingxue. She carefully opened her daughter's clothes, and of course, she saw that her back had recovered to its previous clean white skin with no flaws at all. Only now was she sure that her daughter had truly recovered. She was so excited that she almost shed tears and thanked God that her daughter recovered in one night. The two nurses excitedly came over and helped Ning Qingxue do a simple checkup and discovered that Ning Qingxue was really cured. Other people didn't know how bad Ning Qingxue's injuries were, but these two nurses knew clearly since they had been the ones taking care of Ning Qingxue. However, they didn't expect that such heavy wounds would suddenly be cured. There was nothing more mysterious than this. Was it a wrong diagnosis? When Ning Qingxue heard that the doctors were coming over, she immediately refused another checkup. She knew her body better than anyone else. She was 100% healthy right now, but didn't want the whole world to know about this. Ning Zhongfei flew over to Ninghai on that day. He was happier than anyone else for her daughter's sudden recovery. He only had one daughter, and she was a treasure to him. However, Ning Qingxue still refused her family's requests to leave Ninghai and still wanted to stay there. As for the person who treated her last night, she thought about it and had a vague impression. She started to remember that after she had finished recording her will and wanted to commit suicide, her knife didn't seem to have pierced into her own throat, but instead it had pierced into another person's arm, and afterward she had immediately fainted. Was that person Yemo? Or was it that she was thinking about him too much and pretended the person that night to be him? Since when did Yemo know how to cure wounds? And even how did he have that much ability? Ning Qingxue suddenly remembered that day when Yemo had a stall on the street to practice medicine. Was it really him? Did he really know medicine? If it was him, then the blood on the bed should be left by him. Seeing her mom and the others were leaving, Ning Qingxue called out to Li Mumei. Although she could get up now, and her body condition was excellent, she didn't want to overdo it in case everyone noticed it. Mumei, can you help me analyze the blood on this cloth? Ning Qingxue cut off the blood stain on the bed and gave it to Li Mumei as she wanted to know if this blood was the same as Yi Mo's. Although she couldn't be 100% sure it was Yi Mo's through blood type, at least that pointed her in a direction. If this was his blood, then she would know who the person treated her was, and the person who looked at her body would also be him. In that case, she would feel much peaceful in her heart. Li Mumei took over the cloth, but didn't ask anything. If Ning Qingxue didn't want to say anything, she wouldn't say it even if she had asked. Last night, Ning Qingxue's sudden recovery was the biggest thing for her parents. However, for the students in Ninghai, Shi beating Pu Dongheng was the biggest news. However, compared to these two things, an earthquake erupted amongst the authority due to the murder in the mansion. This was because the people murdered were very influential. One was the young Master Song Shaowen of the Song family. The other was scarier because his name was Qian Shiping. Qian Shiping wasn't anything special himself, but his father was called Qian Long too and had a title, someone who could shake the ground with a step. If the mountain group in Japan and the black-gloved clan from the west were influential, then Nanqing was the most influential in the east. And Qianlong too was the boss of Nanqing. Qian Shiping was his one and only son, and he had him at 40. Qian Longto's real name was Qian Baiha, someone from the Huzhong state. He joined the underground world at the age of 11, and until now there was a place for him even on the world stage. He had his own private army. However, it was a hired army that stayed in Africa, and he himself remained at an extremely grandiose mansion in Africa. Nanqing's things basically didn't need his management. Typically, his henchmen took care of everything and just needed to give him a report. Even the heads of small countries didn't dare to offend the leader of Nanqing, but today his only son was murdered in Ninghai. This was absolutely an earthquake. Whether it was Song Shaowen's death or Qian Shiping's death, it wasn't something that the government authorities here could handle. Yun Bing was woken up by the phone. It was already 9 a.m. She looked at Yi Mo, who was still sleeping like last night. However, his pale face had a sliver of ruddiness. Yun Bing felt assured and picked up the phone. The phone was from her colleague Wang Yu asking her why she didn't go to the school today. Yun Bing hurriedly asked Wang Yu to apply a leave for her. Then she used her towel and wiped up Yi Mo's body before preparing to cook some food. In case he happened to wake up, he could have some. Since Yi Mo was rescued by her from last night, he had remained unconscious. He only opened his eyes once but continued to sleep, and since Yun Bing didn't dare to send him to the hospital, she didn't know what to do anymore. She didn't know if that Shering from last night was Yi Mo. Yun Bing opened up her laptop once again and wanted to search on the news forum of the university. But the news that appeared in front of her eyes almost made her throw her mouse. Last night, in a private mansion, 6 people were murdered. Last night, wasn't that when Yi Mo was injured? Did he do it? Yun Bing thought of before when Yi Mo had beaten Zhang Wenxiao and her schoolmate until they became mentally disabled, and was almost certain this event was also done by Yi Mo. Why was he so violent? Yun Bing turned around and looked at Yi Mo complicatedly. She then searched the news of the murder again. As expected, on some small, unofficial website, she uncovered the truth. Last night, because 2 young masters of big families took away 2 girls and her asterisk ped them in the mansion, someone attacked that place and killed 6 people. Only the 2 girls weren't killed. Yun Bing sighed. She was sure it was done by Yi Mo. He liked to fight against this injustice. It was the same with her last time. However, last time he didn't kill, but this time he did. Did he have violent tendencies? Regardless of whether Yi Mo had violent tendencies or not, he was someone who had saved her life, and to her, he had even saved something more important than life. Furthermore, for the event of the previous night, she also stood on Yi Mo's side. However, she believed that Yi Mo shouldn't kill. Killing people so freely was too absurd in this society. Yun Bing also rejoiced for not sending Yi Mo to the hospital. If she had, then he would have been already exposed. Chapter 80. Confirmed it's him. Chapter 80. Confirmed it's him. Yun Bing hadn't left the house for the entire day. She didn't even go out to buy vegetables. She could only focus on when Yi Mo would wake up and kept heating the congee again and again, but he still didn't have any signs of waking up. If Yi Mo's breathing wasn't normal, she would have thought that he wouldn't survive. She had never seen someone unconscious for so long. But even if she didn't go out, she still knew that what was happening outside wasn't trivial, as she could see the street full of police car patrolling every so often. She really couldn't understand who Yi Mo had killed and why it would cause such a ruckus. In the house Ning Qingxue lived at, other than Su Jingwen and her parents, everyone else had left, so Ning Qingxue got up and ate something. She was staring at that silver heart grass when Li Mumei suddenly ran in. "Qingxue, you can get up." Li Mumei was joyful from the bottom of her heart. "Yeah, I feel much better. Mumei, what happened?" Ning Qingxue looked at the hurried Li Mumei and asked. Li Mumei then realized that she was going to say something. "Qingxue, I heard that Song Xiaotan was killed in Ninghai last night. The person who killed him also killed 5 other people. However, one seemed to have a bigger background than Song Xiaotan, but I don't know who it was." Ning Qingxue thought for a moment and asked, "Mumei, do you know who the other people are?" Li Mumei shook her head and said, "I don't know either. I have no news of the other people. I only knew from a friend. However, this thing got pretty big, and many journalists came to Ninghai. I know a lot of journalists from Beijing, so I might have more information tomorrow." Why did Song Xiaotan come to Ninghai? Was he the one who ordered people to injure her? Then, who killed Song Xiaotan? Ning Qingxue suddenly thought of EMO and immediately asked, "Mumei, did you get the blood analysis back?" "Yeah." Li Mumei gave the report to Ning Qingxue. Ning Qingxue looked, and she became quickly excited. "What's wrong, Qingxue?" Li Mumei hurriedly asked. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, "No, nothing, I'm going in to sit. I'll come out later." Then she walked into the room. Li Mumei looked at Ning Qingxue and thought that she had just recovered and might be feeling tired, so she didn't bother too much. However, Ning Qingxue was elated because the blood type was exactly the same as Yimo's. They were both B-type, although it was far from sufficient to know if it was Yi-Mo through blood type. Ning Qingxue still firmly believed this was him. She seemed to feel Yi-Mo came back. Was he related to the incident of their death last night? If it wasn't Yi-Mo, who else would dare to touch the Song family's people? Yi-Mo dared to kill even Song Xiaowen, so why not Song Xiaodan too? Besides, he had the motive for it. Knowing that it was entirely possible that Yi-Mo came back to save her, she finally felt relieved in her heart. After all, she had already admitted that Yi-Mo was her husband, so if he had seen her body, it wouldn't really matter. However, Ning Qingxue suddenly felt unrest. If Yi-Mo came to Ninghai and killed Song Xiaotan, then wouldn't he be in a very dangerous situation right now? What if he still hadn't escaped out of Ninghai? Ning Qingxue became worried, and now she wished that the person who came last night wasn't Yi-Mo, because if Yi-Mo really did it, then he wouldn't be able to escape from Ninghai with the Song family's power. "Huh, Qingxue, you're all right?" Su Wei asked in surprise. She knew her injuries were grave. The hospital even gave out her final days, but now Ning Qingxue stood in front of her perfectly fine. What was this? "Yeah, I've recovered already. Perhaps the hospital misdiagnosed. My injuries weren't that serious." Ning Qingxue nodded and said. Su Wei was dubious. Ning Qingxue went to the best hospital in Ninghai, one that was famous even in the country. How could they make such a serious mistake? Besides, she had seen with her own eyes Ning Qingxue being hit with that stick. Seeing that Su Wei didn't really believe her, Ning Qingxue quickly changed the subject. "How come you didn't go to work again today?" "Sai, why are your tones exactly the same? Yesterday," Su Wei suddenly stopped. She suddenly remembered that Yi-Mo told her yesterday not to tell Ning Qingxue, but she had almost forgotten today. Although Su Wei had stopped her words in time, Ning Qingxue had discerned it and asked, "What happened yesterday? Did Yi-Mo come back?" At the same time, Ning Qingxue had subconsciously grabbed Su Wei's hands. Su Wei looked at her hands that were tightly clutched by Ning Qingxue. She knew she had spilled it and had no way to keep hiding it. She sighed and said, "Yesterday, Yi-Mo came back and looked at the flower pots for half a day. Then he asked me about you and left. He probably went to the hospital to see you. What, did you not see him?" Ning Qingxue suddenly let go of Su Wei's hands and mumbled, "It really was him. He's all right. He came back, so he was really the one to—" "Qingxue, go rest. You just recovered. Don't walk around everywhere. Sue, we'll eat together later. Her mom and I are cooking right now. Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue, who stood at the doorway, and walked over. Qingxue, why is your face red? Are you hot? Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue's face was as red as an apple and asked concerningly. Ning Qingxue was thinking about Yemo, who came over last night and didn't know if he heard her words. Thinking about how she had called him Lao Gong, she felt really embarrassed and hoped he didn't hear it. But now she was 100% sure that the one who came last night was Yemo. She felt comfortable and even a little bit of sweetness in her heart. Now that Li Mumei asked, Ning Qingxue immediately thought that since Yemo came yesterday, then he must have killed Song Xiaotan to avenge her. Thinking about the events from last night, she realized that Yemo might still be escaping and immediately felt worried. Qingxue, Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue's face change rapidly and felt more worried. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, I'm fine, Mumei. You told me earlier that you know a lot of journalists in Beijing. Can you invite one out and let me see tonight? Ning Qingxue wanted to know what happened last night through the journalist as a way to inadvertently find out about Yi Mo's situation. Qingxue, you want to see a journalist? Don't you hate them? Li Mumei spoke, but seeing Ning Qingxue didn't say anything else, she immediately continued. Okay, I'll ask tonight. If all goes well, I should be able to get one or two. Chapter 81. Awake. Chapter 81. Awake. When Yemo woke up, it was already midnight. Suddenly, he felt that there was someone in his arms, and although there was no light on, Yemo's spirit sense made him realize that this person was Yunbing. Before Yemo fainted for the second time, he knew that he was at Yunbing's home. Therefore, he had closed off all his sense to recover. If he hadn't done that, there would have been more drawbacks. Perhaps it might have even resulted in him forever staying at the second stage of qi gathering. After discovering who it was, he couldn't care too much. He didn't even say one sentence before going into a cultivating state. He didn't know how long he closed off his sense for, but he didn't expect to wake up with Yunbing in his arms. But soon, Yemo understood what had happened. Yunbing must have wanted to lean on the bed and sleep for a while, but after she had fallen asleep, it was cold at night, so she subconsciously moved towards the blanket. From how she didn't take her clothes off, it could be seen that she didn't have a good sleep for the past few days. Although Yemo knew that Yunbing saved him yesterday, he couldn't understand why Yunbing would try to find him before dawn since his relationship with Yunbing was stale. Yunbing even harbored enmity toward him, so why would she be willing to save him? Yemo covered Yunbing with the blanket and took her hand away as he prepared to get down. Regardless of whether or not Yunbing saved him because she knew him, he couldn't stay here. If Yunbing woke up and wanted to cause even more trouble for him, he would be scared of having to hurt her. After all, she had saved him, and if Yunbing hadn't brought him back, then the consequences would have been dire no matter who had found him. This time, he had been overconfident. Although he knew that his power wouldn't be the highest here, he was still a bit shocked when he met an actual opponent. After all, people didn't cultivate qi here. Just when Yemo wanted to get off the bed, he found that the corner of his clothes was tightly grabbed by Yunbing, so he simply checked up on his wound. He had already cured the wound of broken hand bone, and as for the wound on his back, Yunbing had put some cream he didn't recognize, and together with his spirit qi, it was pretty much healed already. He looked at his clothes and realized that the shirt was a bit weird. He even started to suspect if this was Yunbing's clothes. Yemo didn't bother to break away from Yunbing's hand. He just awkwardly took the shirt off. He suddenly remembered about his bag and wondered if Yunbing had brought it back. After all his things were inside there. His money, his clothes, his documents, and even a lot of medical herbs inside. But those weren't even the most significant part. The remaining seeds of his silver heart grass were also inside the bag, and those were his most valuable belongings. It would be over if he lost these seeds, Besides, a piece of purple heart vine was also inside. Thinking about this, Yemo scanned out with his spirit sense. But immediately his heart sunk as he didn't find his bag in the house. That meant that Yun Bing didn't bring back his bag. Now he didn't have clothes, and Yun Bing didn't bring his bag back either. He didn't even have a cent on him. Yemo even wanted to immediately go out and look for his bag. After all, the contents of the bag were too important for him. But before this, he had to ask Yun Bing. He couldn't care if Yun Bing was still asleep and immediately started shaking her. Huh! Yun Bing was shaken awake by Yemo and immediately screamed in shock. But soon she understood that it was Yemo and quickly covered her mouth. When she took her hands away, she then found out that she was grabbing a shirt and was the one who put this shirt on Yemo. Yun Bing blushed and crawled up awkwardly. Oh, you're awake? Yemo nodded. Yes, thank you for saving me. I want to know if you have brought my bag back. Bag. Yun Bing frowned. Last night, when she dragged Yemo onto the car, he seemed to have something in his hand. She didn't really look at it and just stuffed it into the car. She didn't know if that was the bag Yemo was talking about. However, since Yemo asked about that bag immediately when he woke up, it meant that bag was paramount for him. Yun Bing immediately turned on the bed lamp and saw Yemo, who sat there frowning. She had a sudden awkward feeling. They were sitting side by side at the head of the bed at midnight, while Yemo was shirtless. They looked exactly like a couple. She suddenly thought of the scene described in prose. She forgot who wrote it, but it described this scene. Midnight, the husband sat up and ignited a cigarette. He smoked and his eyes were frowning. I know, it's for his child's school fees tomorrow, child. Yun Bing suddenly thought of Ting Ting. That family was really cruel. It had been a few years already, but they wouldn't even let her see Ting Ting once. What's wrong? Yemo looked at Yun Bing's changing face, but before Yun Bing could answer, he asked again, did you remember where you put the bag? Ah, Yun Bing suddenly came to reality. She didn't expect her to wander off. She hurriedly said, I remember I put some stuff in the trunk. I don't know if it was your bag since I was in a rush at the time and forgot. I'll check the car now. She was about to go out after she finished. Yemo quickly stopped her and said, Wait, I'll go. Just tell me where your car is. Yun Bing shook her head. You must not go out. They are looking for you everywhere. If you go out now, they will apprehend you. You know what I did. Yemo looked at Yun Bing in surprise. He thought about how she knew that he killed Song Xiaotan. Yun Bing rolled her eyes towards Yemo and said, Yesterday morning, 6 people were killed in a mansion in Ninghai, and don't tell me you don't know about that. I just went out to look for you, but met you on the way. Yemo, you're an adult now. Is killing something that should be done? Why don't you use your brain and think? Impulsiveness is a devil. Sigh. I have no idea what's going to happen to you, but I know that you'll be living a life on the run. After she had finished, Yun Bing shook her head. Although she approved of Yemo saving people, she still thought it was unfathomable that Yemo killed 6 people. Yemo didn't care about the latter part of what Yun Bing said. He just asked, How do you know I killed? Why did you go look for me? And how would you know I was there? Hearing Yemo's words, Yun Bing's face showed some guilt. Yemo, sorry, I was looking for you to apologize to you. I know that you were saving me that day as well, but I only understood when I found the SD card from the camera. The reason I went to look for you yesterday was that I saw that Shering on the news of Ning High Technology University and thought that he looked like you. I was prepared to go there, but fortunately I met you on the road. Looks like me. Yemo thought that he used a layer of qi to cover his face at the time. They shouldn't be able to capture a clear image. How did Yun Bing know? I just noticed his face was similar to yours. That's why I tried my luck and went out to look for you. Tell me, are you Shering? Yun Bing seemed to have forgotten about other things now. Yemo nodded, admitting that he was Shering. He also understood why Yun Bing was saving him and didn't look for trouble. It was due to that card. Since you know I'm a killer, why aren't you scared? Are you that calm with every killer you meet? Yemo suddenly asked. Yun Bing was stunned. She now realized that she really wasn't scared of him at all. She was only concerned and didn't even think about being scared. Had she always been that bold? But when she was with Yemo, she really didn't feel scared at all. Now that Yemo asked, she couldn't help but to shake her head and say, I was just a bit worried about you, but I wasn't scared, perhaps because you had saved me before, or maybe it was that you only killed the people that deserved to die. Chapter 82 Yunbing's Sigh. Chapter 82 Yunbing sighed hearing Yunbing's words. Yemo remained silent for a while. He had overestimated himself yesterday. He only went there because he was curious about Hu Chiu at the time and didn't expect Song Xiaotan to be there as well. However, Ning Qingxue was injured because Song Xiaotan sent people there, so he couldn't resist but to kill him. This had greatly deviated from his original plan. Originally, it wasn't much even if he killed Song Xiaotan. He could leave Ning high during that night, but he hadn't expected Hu Chiu to be so much stronger than he had estimated and ended up heavily injured. If Yun Bing didn't bring him back, perhaps he would be at the Song family compound already. Even if he had a strong background, he wouldn't be able to leave once he was in the Song family's hands, much less since he had no background anymore. What to do now? Yi Mo suddenly realized that he had no way left right now. Ning Hai must be in lockdown. If he had been in the third stage of Qi gathering by now, then he would be able to leave Ning Hai easily. But now he was only in the late phase of the second stage. Seeing Yi Mo's silence, Yun Bing thought that Yi Mo heard her words and wanted to go check if his bag was in the car. However, she was suddenly grabbed by Yi Mo, so she looked at him in confusion. Yi Mo shook his head and said, Don't go. The reason Yi Mo didn't let Yun Bing go out was because after his injuries, his spirit sense could surprisingly reach out to a distance of 12 to 15 meters. When his spirit sense scanned out, he found two people in casual clothing, seemingly monitoring the people coming and going. Although he didn't know if this was related to him, Yi Mo still felt that it was better to be careful. Why? Obviously, Yun Bing didn't know people were monitoring them and was curious why Yi Mo didn't seem to care about that bag all of a sudden. Yi Mo couldn't say he had a spirit sense, so he said, It's not safe to go down to the parking to get things in the middle of the night. Besides, it's easy to be seen by people and become a target of suspicion. Yun Bing thought about it a while and believed that Yi Mo's words were true, so she didn't insist. Yi Mo estimated that since even Yun Bing was able to deduce that he had killed these people, the Song family would definitely be able to find out that Yi Mo was the murderer. It seemed that he should leave Ning Hai as early as possible. After this thing, he could no longer go to Luotsang. He sighed and thought, plans really couldn't keep up with changes. He still wanted to find a place to settle down and plant his silver heart grass before going to the desert. But now he couldn't do that. You should get some sleep. Yi Mo turned around and said to Yun Bing, Aren't you sleeping? Yun Bing thought that there was only one bed in the house. If she slept there, Yi Mo would have no place to sleep. Yi Mo shook his head. I'm not tired. You can sleep first. He really wasn't, and at this time he wasn't in the mood to sleep anyway. Since his plans were gone down the drain, he had to make new ones. Looking at Yi Mo, who didn't even have a shirt on, Yun Bing hesitated for a while before saying, There's still a few hours of nighttime, and the bed is really big. We can sleep on one side each. Yi Mo looked at Yun Bing in surprise. He didn't expect Yun Bing to say something like this. She didn't seem like an open person, but he didn't want Yun Bing to think too much, so he nodded and said, Fine, go to sleep. I'll just lean on the bed for a while. He thought that he could cultivate on the bed as well anyway, and a few hours would pass really in a flash for him. Right now, he hadn't fully recovered yet, so he shouldn't be careless. Yi Mo sat there and went into a cultivating state really quickly. However, Yun Bing wasn't so stable when she slept, which didn't match her cold face at all. She just turned once and hugged one of Yi Mo's leg again, although Yi Mo was cultivating. He could still feel Yun Bing's body and the softness in front of her chest. Regardless of his past life or this life, he was a virgin in both as an ordinary man and as a cultivator. Although he was enticed, he cast the thoughts away hastily and didn't pay any more attention as he continued to cultivate. A few hours passed very quickly indeed. Yi Mo was still immersed in cultivation while Yun Bing slept very well, the corner of her mouth slightly raised up, seemingly in a good dream. Perhaps after that incident, she had never been able to sleep so well. She felt as though she held something dependable and no longer had that feeling of hollowness from before. So she held very tightly with her hands without the slightest intention of letting go. After Yi Mo had cultivated a big chi cycle, he opened his eyes and saw that the sky was not completely lit up yet. He looked at Yun Bing, who shrunk her head into the blanket while her body was pressed on him completely, and Yi Mo felt that it was getting hotter. Although he wanted to remove Yun Bing's hands, she seemed to stick onto him very tightly. Seeing her sleeping so sweetly, he sighed and didn't try to wake her again. He continued to cultivate to his next big cycle. He estimated that after he was done, Yun Bing should be up too. When Yi Mo entered the next big chi cycle again, Yun Bing suddenly woke up, and as soon as she opened her eyes, she immediately found out that she was hugging Yi Mo's leg. She got scared and immediately let go. Although the sky wasn't fully lit, she just felt there was a hot, burning sensation on her face. But immediately she thought of Yi Mo. Did he really sit like this for the whole night? Seeing that Yi Mo still had his eyes closed as if he was still sleeping, Yun Bing finally released a sigh of relief. Luckily, Yi Mo was asleep. Otherwise, that would have been too embarrassing. However, when she thought again to what she was feeling, she realized that she had this worry-free serenity when she had hugged Yi Mo's leg as she slept, which had made her very comfortable and didn't feel any worry or fear. Furthermore, the aroma from his body was also very pleasant. It even gave her a sense of otherworldliness. Yun Bing looked at Yi Mo's sleeping young face and couldn't help but to touch her already 30-year-old face. Although it was still young and smooth, she still felt a bitterness in her heart and suddenly felt that perhaps it wasn't a good thing to go back to Beijing to see Feng Rong. There were some things she didn't dare to think about, but it didn't mean that they didn't exist. Was Feng Rong still the same as he used to be many years ago? She knew that she was no longer the Yun Bing from all those years ago. She only wanted to see Feng Rong and ask him why he simply left without notice all those years ago, and why he never had contacted her before. But now, she felt this was unnecessary. So what if he remembered her? So what if he didn't? If something similar happened again, would he disappear again? Was this sort of man reliable? So what if he could take her to America? Perhaps she simply missed Ting Ting too much. But even if she went to Beijing, would she even be able to see Ting Ting? Yi Mo was still asleep. Yun Bing looked down at her curvaceous body. She thought about that day when Yi Mo saw her body and suddenly felt this burning sensation from the bottom of her heart. She started to shake and felt she was entranced. So she quickly left the bedroom and drank a cup of cold water. Finally, she was able to gradually calm down. When she went back to the bedroom again, she didn't dare to stay on the bed. She watched Yi Mo quietly before making an almost inaudible sigh after some time, as she never would have thought she would have sexual urges toward Yi Mo. However, she still had a logical mind and knew that Yi Mo and she were two people on different paths. Whether it was now or in the future, they would have no more encounters. Although Ning Zhongfei and Lan Yu persuaded Ning Qingxue again and again, she just wasn't willing to leave this house. They were helpless, so they could only let her be. Li Mumei stayed behind with Ning Qingxue for the moment, but they needed to return to Yu State. Mumei, how is it? Ning Qingxue still kept remembered Li Mumei saying that she would be able to invite out a few journalists. She wanted to know from the journalist how the case was progressing so she could know Yi Mo's current state. I've asked, and tonight the police department of Ninghai City will hold a press conference, and one of Jingwen's friends will be there. We'll go together tomorrow to see that person. But Qingxue, I feel that this thing is actually beneficial to us, so there's no need to see the journalists, Li Mumei said. Of course, Ning Qingxue knew what she wanted to ask about, but she couldn't explain to Li Mumei, so she could only say, "It might be related to me. Let's go make sure." Li Mumei knew that it was someone from the Song family that had died. However, since it was Ning Qingxue's wish, she couldn't really stop her. Chapter 83. I Can't Let You Go. Chapter 83. I Can't Let You Go. Yemo cultivated another big cycle, and when he had finished it was already noon. He felt that all the injuries in his body were gone and was full of vigor. Even his power increased a little. If he progressed a little more, he would reach the peak of the second stage. Although he wasn't there yet, he knew that such a minor improvement on such a desolate place, scarce of spirit qi, was quite significant. He wasn't disappointed at all. He looked by his side. Yunbing had gotten up and wasn't in the room. It seemed that she went out. Yi Emo got up and saw the toothbrush and toothpaste Yunbing prepared for him and washed his face. Ding ding, the doorbell sounded. Yi Emo scanned with his spirit sense immediately and saw that the person standing at the door wasn't Yunbing, but a 20-or-so-year-old girl. However, she didn't seem that much younger than Yunbing. Although she wasn't as pretty as Yunbing, her chest area was a bit more generous. In Yi Mo's impression, out of every girl he knew, the bustiest was Wendong. However, the chest of the girl in front of the door was even bigger than Wendong's. Seeing her look, if she hadn't been that young, Yi Mo would have thought this girl was already married. However, he didn't have much experience with women, so it would be normal if he was wrong. An unknown girl came to Yunbing's home, and even if Yunbing was at home, he would tell her not to open the door. So now that she wasn't here, there was no reason for him to open it. After all, he was on the run right now. The girl waited for a while and saw that nobody answered the door, so she said to herself, "Sister Bing isn't at school, and isn't at home either. Where could she be?" Afterward, Yemo saw her leaving and finally felt relieved, as he didn't want this woman to come in. However, he soon realized how unlucky he was because, at this moment, Yunbing was coming back, carrying a lot of things, including a bag, but it wasn't his. "Huh, Sister Bing, where did you go? I looked everywhere from the school to here, and I finally found you." This girl immediately screamed in joy when she saw Yunbing. "Healy, why did you come? When did you come to Ninghai?" Yunbing replied immediately, but soon Healy saw Yunbing's anxious face and seemed to have understood her situation. "Obviously, it's because I have something to talk to you about. Hurry and open the door." "I'll tell you inside," Healy said immediately. Yunbing hesitated at the door, but didn't open. "What? Sister Bing, you're not going to make me tell you here, are you? I came from so far away, and you're not even going to let me in and sit for a while. It's not like you have a man hiding inside. Why are you afraid of opening the door?" Healy saw Yunbing still wouldn't take out the keys and immediately joked. Yunbing's face blushed and stuttered. Healy, why don't we talk outside?" "I have someone at home." "Huh. Sister Bing, you have a boyfriend?" "Then I must go inside to meet him. I must see what sort of person can conquer your distant heart." Healy immediately shouted in surprise. Yunbing hesitated for a while. She wasn't someone who didn't know what was at stake. Although Healy was a good friend of hers, Yumo's identity was too special. Thinking about this, she bit her teeth and said, "Healy, how about I present you to him next time? He is still naked at home." Healy looked at Yunbing for a long while as though she discovered an alien before saying, "Sister Bing, I really didn't know you were so open. You're even sleeping together. Who is this guy?" "No, make him dress up. I must meet him." "But his clothes were ripped last night." Yunbing couldn't find a better excuse in the spur of the moment. Healy opened her eyes wider again and examined Yunbing from head to toe before sighing. "Sister Bing, you really are strong. How long does it take off the clothes? You guys can't even wait for that scene." "Oh my God." Yunbing's face was blushing red, but she couldn't explain it. "Okay, Seeing how you're so embarrassed, I won't go inside and disturb your romance. I just came here to tell you that Feng Rong came back. He was asking for your news everywhere. But I don't think this Feng Rong is trustworthy. Be careful of him. I'm here to participate in the press conference, so I won't chat with you now. Next time, remember to bring your boyfriend and show me. Healy turned and left after talking. Yun Bing looked at Lee's disappearing back before she was relieved and let out a sigh. She finally managed to trick her to go away. Unfortunately, the cost was to expose her non-existent wildness and promiscuity. Yun Bing opened the door and saw Yemo, who stood at the doorway. She was so scared that she immediately closed the doors and said worriedly, "You're not well yet. Why did you get up?" Yemo said with gratitude, "Mrs. Yin, thank you for what you did just then." "You heard it all?" Yun Bing thought about the fact that Yemo was standing behind the door as soon as she had asked the question. So he must have heard it. However, she also remembered her words, and her face started to change. She wondered what Yemo would think of her. "Yeah, I heard it all. That was really hard for you. So if there's the opportunity in the future, I will definitely come back and repay your goodwill. However, I have already troubled you for 2 days," Yemo said with guilt. He was someone who would respect those who respected him more, and split his debt and enmity very clearly. He paid animosity with animosity and goodwill with goodwill. "I didn't really help you, and from now on, don't call me Mrs. Yin. I feel it's a bit awkward." Yun Bing remembered the time when she slept beside Yemo. They had slept together. Despite not doing anything, Yun Bing still felt calling her that was a bit weird. However, Yun Bing suddenly realized the implication of his words and said in shock, "What did your words just then meant?" "Are you leaving?" Yemo nodded and said, "Yes, I have already bothered you for many days. You saved me, and I can't stay at your place any longer. That would be endangering you. I have recovered now, and I need to leave. By the way, did you help me look for my bag?" "No, I can't let you go." Yun Bing just said half her sentence when she saw the shock on Yemo's face. She immediately blushed and changed her tone. "I meant that it's too dangerous outside. They are searching for you everywhere. If you go out now, it would be suicide." Yemo felt warm in his heart. Yun Bing was the typical cold-faced, yet warm-hearted woman. He had just helped her once, and she repaid him with this much. She even neglected her reputation for him. "Sister Bing, I know that you're saying this for my sake, but in fact, I have the means to escape, you can rest assured." Yemo felt the need to change the way he called her from Mrs. Yin to Sister Bing. Seeing Yemo change his words, Yun Bing's face eased down. She stayed silent for a moment before saying, "Yemo, stay for another night. In fact, when you sleep at my house, my sleep is also a lot better. It was like that last night, so just think of it as helping me, can you?" Yemo looked at Yun Bing in disbelief. With her ruddy face, she actually looked stunningly enticing and beautiful. He knew that Yun Bing was afraid that he would be caught immediately after he left. Seeing Yemo look at her for so long without talking, the ruddiness on her face retreated and turned white. Just when she wanted to say something, Yemo spoke. "Fine, Sister Bing, I think you're right. I'll leave tomorrow morning then. Perhaps that's when it would be the safest." Seeing Yemo agree to her, Yun Bing's face was beaming with joy. She acted like a little child trying to please an adult and brought out the bag in her hands. "All your things are in here. I also bought a lot of food, and I'll cook for you in a moment so that you can fill your stomach." Chapter 84. The Prince Charming That Descended from the Heaven. Chapter 84. The Prince Charming that descended from the heaven Ning Qingxue didn't like Starbucks and never went there to drink coffee. She disliked the so-called North American style, and even didn't like the cake inside. However, today she had to go to Starbucks because the journalist friend of Su Jingwen loved their coffee. "Mumei, Qingxue this way!" As soon as Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei came, Su Jingwen called out from a table near the window. Beside her sat a tall-figured woman. She was good-looking, too. Let me introduce. This is my friend Xiao Lei. She is the most famous journalist in Beijing. She always charges to the front line and gets every first-hand news. Xiao Lei, they're my friends Mumei and Qingxue. Su Jingwen introduced for both sides. Hello, Qingxue. I've heard of the big name Ning Qingxue, the prettiest girl in Beijing. When I saw you today, I feel so self-conscious, haha. Xiao Lei also stood up and shook their hands. Big journalist Xiao, I've heard of you. Last time I was on your blog, looking at your posts from when you went to Flowing Snake. I didn't think I would meet you in Ninghai so fast. It's a real honor. Li Mumei was better at communicating and became familiar with Xiao Lei very quickly. Xiao Lei smiled and said, if it wasn't for someone who saved me last time, perhaps I wouldn't even be able to come back. Then, Xiao Lei looked at Ning Qingxue. Of course. She knew that Ning Qingxue had a fiancé called Yi Mo, and the person who saved her was also called Yi Mo. But she wouldn't think these two would be the same person. The difference was too huge. Perhaps everyone in Beijing knew what sort of a fiancé Ning Qingxue had. How could he be that Yi Mo in Flowing Snake? What do you want to drink? Su Jingwen was the host today. Li Mumei didn't really care and casually ordered a mocha. I don't mind. Ning Qingxue didn't like coffee anyway. The main reason she came today was to find out about Yi Mo. As for drinks, she didn't care at all. The four girls who sat on Su Jingwen's table were all gorgeous. Soon, they attracted the eyes of everyone in the cafeteria, which made Ning Qingxue uncomfortable. Xiao Lei, I've also heard about you. I really admire your journalism spirit. Although Ning Qingxue hadn't been to Beijing, she had still heard about the famous journalist Xiao Lei. Although Li Mumei didn't know why Ning Qingxue cared so much about the case last night, it should be related to the Song family. So she asked for Ning Qingxue. Xiao Lei, I heard Jingwen say that you came to Ninghai to interview in that case. How is that going? Li Mumei seemed to ask casually. So Xiao Lei didn't care too much. She just thought they found a topic she was familiar to talk about. She took a sip of the coffee and said, they still haven't captured the fugitive yet, but it's said that the family of the victim already know who the culprit is. They just don't have solid evidence yet, since this culprit was very cunning. Before he went in, he destroyed all the surveillance apparatus. Ning Qingxue felt her heart feeling relieved after hearing that the culprit wasn't caught. For the first time, she drank coffee. There was a faint taste of milk, and the texture was silky smooth. Suddenly, Ning Qingxue felt that this coffee wasn't bad. It had a lot less bitter flavor than what she had tasted previously. Song Xiaotan was killed, so this time the Song family will go crazy. The Song family is indeed too cocky, so it's not a surprise that people have made a move on them. It seems that one can't be too arrogant. Li Mumei didn't have the slightest sympathy for the death of Song Xiaotan and didn't hide the meaning of her words. However, Xiao Lei shook her head. The craziest issue this time isn't about the Song family, although they are still crazy. They have a lot of descendants. This time, a crazier one is related to another one of the people murdered. He's called Qian Shiping. Qian Shiping! Both Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei hadn't heard of this name before and were a bit surprised. Who could get crazier than the Song family? Who is Qian Shiping? Although Su Jingwen was curious, she didn't have to ask, but Ning Qingxue had to because it concerned Yi Mo's safety. As if confused at Ning Qingxue's desperation, Su Jingwen glanced at Ning Qingxue. In her eyes, Ning Qingxue shouldn't have so much curiosity toward these things, unlike ordinary people. But now, she was more curious than her. This was indeed strange. Although Xiao Lei had heard of Ning Qingxue, she didn't really know her personality, so she explained, the name Qian Shiping isn't much, but the main point is his dad is called Qian Baiha, but he has another name, Qian Longtu. Qian Longtu? Ning Qingxue felt this name was familiar, but couldn't remember who it was. Qian Longtu is the underground leader of one of the gang in Northeast Asia Nanqing. His influence is so huge that it is said he would have the means to find even a needle dropped in the ocean. But now his only son was killed. Do you think he would stop with his power? So this thing is quite serious. We just don't know Qian Longtou's reaction yet. Before Xiao Lei finished speaking, the coffee cup that Ning Qingxue just raised suddenly splattered on the table, spilling coffee everywhere. Although she didn't understand what Nanqing represented exactly, it didn't mean she didn't know what Nanqing was. She just didn't expect Yemo to get into conflict with someone so powerful. Immediately, she felt unrest. Qingxue, what's wrong? Li Mumei asked concerningly. She thought Ning Qingxue's wounds hadn't healed yet. Su Jingwen also noticed that there was something wrong with Ning Qingxue. Her face didn't seem as normal as before, and quickly changed the topic. Let's not talk about this, it's too depressing. Xiao Lei, tell us about your experience last time at Flowing Snake. I also want to go there for my holiday. Xiao Lei, who initially had her eyes on Ning Qingxue, was immediately attracted by the topic. Hearing Su Jingwen's words, she hurriedly waved her hand. Jingwen, you must not go to Flowing Snake. If I wasn't saved by Yemo last time, I wouldn't be alive now. Yemo. Li Mumei, Ning Qingxue, and Su Jingwen almost said this name at the same time. After Xiao Lei had spoken, she knew that she said it wrong and quickly corrected her meaning. It's Yemo, but not Qingxue. I didn't realize that the person who saved me was also called Yemo. Ning Qingxue returned to herself and smiled. It doesn't matter, I don't mind. Xiao Lei, can you tell me about it? Seeing Ning Qingxue calm down instead, she started retelling her encounters in Flowing Snake. To be honest, I really didn't think that Wang Qianjun was that sort of person. He paid 50 grand and just dumped me there while he ran for himself. He actually gave me to a bunch of bandits. Huh, I didn't see this on your blog. Then what did you do after? Li Mumei also started to worry here. Xiao Lei's eyes suddenly became obsessed as she mumbled. At that time he was like a prince charming that descended from the heavens and knocked all the bandits out. The way he flew was too handsome. His kicks, I can never forget in my entire life. I have never seen someone with such high martial arts skills. I thought this was all TV action scenes, but it happened to me that day. Hearing Xiao Lei's recount, even Su Jingwen and Li Mumei felt an anxiety and longing towards that scene. However, Ning Qingxue felt more and more that the person was the Yi Mo she longed for. Chapter 85. All right, we'll both sleep on the bed then. Chapter 85. All right, we'll both sleep on the bed then. Xiao Lei, since you're so pretty, did he want to keep contact with you? Li Mumei immediately was interested. Xiao Lei shook her head and said bitterly, to be honest, I was interested in him at that moment. I'm sure that was love at first sight. However, I'm not his Snow White. He didn't give me any chance at all. He didn't even give me his number. Su Jingwen couldn't contain herself and laughed out loud. Journalist Xiao, she has the perfect body and the perfect face. Look at this chest of hers. Even I'm scared. How can you be afraid that you can't find your prince? Seeing Su Jingwen make jokes about her, Xiao Lei surprisingly didn't laugh. Instead, she shook her head again and said, You don't understand my feeling at the time. At my most helpless moment, someone came down from the heavens and saved me. I didn't read too much fairy tales. This is real. Perhaps you guys haven't experienced it and can't understand my feeling. But he's so handsome. Perhaps that's not called handsome, but I don't know what it's called. Xiao Lei actually felt dejected. Xiao Lei, can you describe what he looks like to us? Ning Qingxue suddenly asked shakily. They were all thinking to themselves and didn't notice Ning Qingxue's weird tone. He looked around 20 years old, wearing an ordinary light blue shirt. His skin looked very good, and he had a gentle appearance. His eyes were very soft and looked very comfortable. He appeared to be almost 180 centimeters and doesn't look extraordinarily handsome, but his face was clearly distinguished and very pleasant to look at. When he smiled, he looked very confident, as if he wouldn't care even if the heavens were collapsing. His nose was very sharp, his teeth very white. By the way, I have his photo. Hurry up and take it out. Li Mumei said. They still didn't get a clear image after Xiao Lei described for so long. The only real notion they could imagine would be his height. Xiao Lei took out an exquisite mirror from her bag and passed the mirror while mocking herself. The photo is here, but I took it secretly last time. I'm already in an unrequited love now. But even if she didn't say it, they could tell from Xiao Lei's tone and this exquisite mirror that she really had those feelings. Otherwise, why would a mirror holding a photo be so exquisite? Ning Qingxue took over the mirror shakily, and suddenly, as she saw the picture, she dropped the mirror. Luckily, it was caught by Su Jingwen beside her. Seeing Ning Qingxue make the same mistake twice, Li Mumei said worriedly, "Qingxue, are you really all right? How about we leave earlier?" Ning Qingxue only nodded and still didn't talk, but Su Jingwen shouted in surprise, "It really is Yi Mo." "He is called Yi Mo." Xiao Lei only spoke half a sentence before realizing something wasn't right. She looked at Su Jingwen in surprise. "What did you mean by it really is Yi Mo?" Li Mumei took over the mirror and also said in surprise, "Qingxue, it really is him. Why did he go to Flowing Snake?" Xiao Lei felt something was wrong and looking inquisitively towards Su Jingwen. Su Jingwen smiled bitterly and said, "He is Qingxue's current husband, Yi Mo. I just don't know why he would go to Flowing Snake." "Qingxue's husband?" Xiao Lei repeated. A sudden unknown feeling welled up, making her face feel hot. But then she said immediately, "Didn't Qingxue already break the marriage agreement?" Su Jingwen looked at Xiao Lei and said, "Xiao Lei, it's not surprising that you don't know. Although her family had broken the marriage agreement, Qingxue still married him in the end, but the wedding was just very discreet. At that time you were probably in Tibet, and you probably went to Flowing Snake as soon as you came back. So you probably didn't hear about this. Now, Qingxue is still married to Yi Mo. They didn't divorce." The reason Su Jingwen said this was to point out that Yi Mo was still Ning Qingxue's husband right now and make Xiao Lei be more careful with her words. However, she was also being euphemistic. How was Qingxue and Yi Mo's wedding discreet? It was almost as though they didn't have one. They just went to collect a marriage certificate. Xiao Lei looked at Ning Qingxue awkwardly. She didn't expect the man she secretly admired and kept a photo of to be the husband of the girl sitting in front of her right now. Sorry, Qingxue, I really didn't know that Yi Mo was your husband. It was because I heard that he's, Xiao Lei felt very awkward. At the same time, she felt a deep sense of disappointment and unfairness. She didn't understand why the Yi Mo she had met would be Ning Qingxue's husband. If that Yi Mo was really the useless person the Yi family kicked out, how could he be so strong and so calm? Even if he was that disabled Yi Mo, how can someone like Ning Qingxue marry him? Yun Bing cooked a table full of dishes. Yi Mo hadn't eaten a good meal for a long time, so she was afraid that it would affect his body. Hence, she went out today and bought a lot of vegetables, as if having an extra person made the house a lot more lively. Yun Bing also felt much happier. If she hadn't been worrying about what Yi Mo had done, perhaps she would be even happier. At this moment, she felt that she wasn't merciless Bing. She didn't want to be merciless Bing. Perhaps it was because no one was able to make her truly feel happy all these years. Actually, Yi Mo didn't really do anything, but he rendered her a feeling of reliability. Perhaps it was because she didn't have a man in her life for a long time. Although she knew that her thinking was wrong, she couldn't stop her subconscious thinking. She had hoped more than once that Yi Mo hadn't done those things. He was an abandoned son. His fiancée also broke the marriage pact with him. Moreover, his body had that unspeakable problem. However, Yun Bing secretly thought that she didn't mind these things and liked the feeling of sleeping next to Yi Mo. It was very comfortable and relaxing. But she knew that she could only think about it for a few moments and didn't even dare to say it or even consider it properly. She was already an impure woman and much older than him. Besides, there were the eyes of the society judging her. Sigh. Yun Bing wondered once again if only Yi Mo wasn't on the wanted list yet. Perhaps only she knew of his excellence. After dinner, Yi Mo wanted to sleep early. This was because he needed to run at night and needed to save up enough stamina. He was very grateful toward Yun Bing for bringing back everything. The silver heart grass and the purple heart vine were all very precious to him and weren't something he could find easily. You sleep on the bed tonight, and I'll sleep on the couch. Although Yun Bing liked the feeling of sleeping beside Yi Mo, she was also afraid she would wake up hugging Yi Mo once more. She didn't dare to sleep on the bed at night. Yi Mo shook his head. I'm the man. I sleep the couch. You sleep on the bed. No, your body hasn't recovered yet. How can you sleep on the couch? Yun Bing immediately rejected his proposal. All right, we'll both sleep on the bed then. Wasn't it like that last night as well? Yi Mo didn't even care if he slept with Yun Bing. He only felt grateful towards Yun Bing, nothing else. Okay. Yun Bing didn't even try to object slightly. Chapter 86. Leaving Ninghai. Chapter 86. Leaving Ninghai when Yi Mo had woken up, it was already 1 a.m. This time was perfect for him to leave Ninghai. He looked at Yun Bing. He didn't know when she came into his arms again. She still had a small smile on the corner of her lips. Her face was also slightly red. He didn't know what sort of good dream she was having. Although in Yi Mo's impression before, Yun Bing was a cold and heartless woman. After Yi Mo had lived with her for a couple of days, her impression of her had some change. And even though she was almost 30, Yi Mo felt she wasn't even as mature as Su Wei. She completely used her cold face to conceal her true nature. In the depth of her heart, she was still like an unmarried young girl who yearned for warmth and protection. This could be seen from how she would go into his arms every time she slept. Yun Bing didn't wear her clothes and slept like last night with only a nightgown. However, she held Yi Mo's arms, which pressed onto the two balls in front her chest, revealing half a globe of shocking whiteness. He could even see the red bean-like dot, since she didn't even wear bras. Although Yi Mo hadn't had the adult experience yet, it didn't mean he didn't understand it. He just felt his mouth was getting drier the more he looked at her. Yi Mo could hardly connect the woman sleeping beside him with that cold teacher, since one was so understanding, while the other was so cold. Yi Mo sighed. Perhaps this was her way of protecting herself. He carefully removed Yun Bing's hand and covered her with the blanket. Then Yi Mo got off the bed. He thought a while, then took out a pen and some paper and left her a simple letter. Afterward, he put on his clothes and his bag before jumping out straight from the balcony. Although Yun Bing was living on the 4th floor, Yi Mo could jump to the balcony on the 2nd story first before jumping from there. Soon, he disappeared into the dark night. Although there were barricades everywhere in Ninghai, it wasn't much trouble for Yi Mo, as he didn't need to ride a vehicle. His cloud shadow step wouldn't be slower than cars, and on the contrary, he was even agiler. After 2 hours, it was already 3 a.m. now. Yi Mo had left Ninghai far behind. Yi Mo thought again and again, and was certain his identity had been exposed. But now, he didn't have any way of forging a new identity. He could use the one Wendong helped make for him, but the name on there was also Yi Mo, which definitely would attract too much attention. Sigh, if only he had changed his name before. Yi Mo stood at a 3-way intersection as he wanted to stop a vehicle. No matter where he went, it was best to get as far as possible. He wouldn't be able to handle it if he kept using his cloud shadow step. However, the cars coming and going on the road weren't much. Only a few cargo trucks passed occasionally. Although Yi Mo tried to get them to stop for a long time, none of them did. A car that didn't have a clearly visible brand drove toward Yi Mo. quite fast. Yi Mo waved his hand, trying his luck. And if this car still wouldn't stop, he decided to find a cargo truck and get on secretly. What surprised Mo was that this car actually stopped just when Yi Mo was prepared to go up and thank them. He heard a female voice in the car say, "Xueming, why would you stop the car for a stranger in the middle of the night? Besides, we're already being pursued ourselves. What if he's also someone from Yellow? Dandan, who doesn't encounter troubles outside. We also have this car because someone else helped us. Besides, we only came here for half a day after getting this car. Yellow couldn't possibly know, so how can he be one of them? Plus, he's by himself. Do you not trust your man?" This time it was a man's voice. He appeared to be already 30 or so, and at this moment, Yi Mo had already walked up to the car. The man looked at him and said, "Come on in, friend. Open the door." The woman rolled her eyes and didn't say anything anymore. Although the man and woman only spoke a few sentences, he already made out the approximate situation. These two also got into conflict with someone and were on the run, just like him, but fortunately this man was warm-hearted. They were amidst trouble themselves, but he was still willing to help others. Immediately, Yi Mo had a good impression of him. "I'm Wu Xueming. This is my girlfriend, you meowed on. Where do you want to go, friend?" Wu Xueming immediately introduced as Yi Mo got on the car. Yi Mo saluted with his fists and said, "I'm Yi Mo. I don't have a specific place I want to go. I just want to take a ride for a while." He was grateful toward Wu Xueming and didn't hide his name. Originally, that woman saw Yi Mo seemed quiet and weak, so she felt safe, but hearing his words now, she immediately became vigilant. A person stopped their car, but didn't have a clear idea of where he wanted to go to. This didn't sound right at all. Hearing Yi Mo's words, Wu Xueming studied Yi Mo in surprise. No matter how he looked, Yi Mo didn't seem like someone who could threaten him. Yi Mo could tell that these two people were suspicious of him. He didn't intend to hide, besides they were also on the run. So he smiled bitterly and said, "It's because I offended someone rather significant, so I ran out during the night. I just want to get as far away as possible. As long as you take me to a distant place and drop me off before dawn, I would be very grateful." Hearing Yi Mo's words, Wu Xueming understood immediately. The power of the world was always grasped in the hands of the minority. Some insignificant people who offend the significant people had no other way but to run. Although they were also on the run, he had some sympathy for Yi Mo. He only nodded and spoke no more. He just started the car and left rapidly. Yi Mo sat on the back seat. He could feel that Wu Xueming practiced martial arts, but compared to him, Wu Xueming could only be called average. Perhaps a little better than Fang Weicheng, but better to a limit. However, he had no idea what the yellow was. This woman did seem to be pleasing to the eye. A fitting dress covered her body, showcasing all of her curves, and she had some light makeup on her face, making her seem exquisite, but not vulgar. At this moment, she was on the seat beside the driver. However, her eyes were constantly on Wu Xueming, and obviously he was very important to her. Wu Xueming, with his thick eyebrows, looked very bulky and had the allure of a soldier. At least, Yi Mo was sure that he was a soldier, or had been before, because he could feel a kind of aura similar to that of the soldier he had saved in the forest, Guiqi. However, he also had a fierce killer's chi on him, which was something Guiqi didn't have. It meant that after he had left the army, he wasn't only doing the ordinary occupation. Who did Brother Yi offend? Wu Xueming felt the atmosphere in the car was tense and asked, "Someone with quite the status. Unfortunately, I offended this person, and I have no choice but to run. Luckily, I met Brother Wu." Although Yi Mo had a good impression of Wu Xueming, they still just met each other. He didn't need to tell him everything. Sigh. This society, Wu Xueming sighed and didn't continue talking. After a while, he spoke again. "I'm going to Mangjiang, so I can drop you off there. What do you think?" Mangjiang is close to the sea and Hong Kong. You can find your way to Hong Kong or other places easily from there. Yi Emo nodded and said, "Okay, Mangjiang is fine. Thank you, Brother Wu." Wu Xueming smiled. "Troubles are unavoidable when you're outside. I can only help you with this. You have to depend on yourself for the rest." Chapter 87. Being Followed. Chapter 87. Being followed. Ring ring. It was Yu Miaodon's phone. She picked it up, but no one spoke. Just when she was confused, Wu Xueming's face suddenly changed. He immediately said, "Quick! Turn it off! Quick!" Yu Miaodon closed her phone confusingly and looked at Wu Xueming. "What's wrong, Xueming?" "We were probably geolocated by these people. I think it would take no longer than 2 minutes before they find out where we are." Wu Xueming's face looked bad. "Huh. Then what do we do? But I just switched to a new number and nobody knew." "How did they know?" Yu Miaodon had a face full of worry and was pale. Yi Mo could tell from Yu Miaodon's face that the people they offended were very powerful. Otherwise, they wouldn't be this scared. "Before you got your new number, you called Daishan. It was probably revealed from her." Wu Xueming's face didn't look good, but he had calmed down already. "How is that possible? Daishan is like my sister. Why would she do something like that?" Yu Miaodon's face was full of disbelief. "There's nothing that's impossible in this world. Although Daishan is very close to you, who could resist their temptation in front of death or benefits? This isn't the time to think about it now. We need to think about what we should do next." Wu Xueming was completely calm now. Yi Mo saw that Wu Xueming was quite collected and thought of him more highly. When things happened, one need to face it, not complain. "Brother Yi, I'm really sorry you need to get off here. Truth be told, we're also running away. However, the people I offended are much more powerful than the people you offended. Right now, we have been tracked by them, and they'll probably find us soon. If you stay in the car, you'll be affected too." Wu Xueming had an apologetic face, but he glanced once at Yu Miaodon, showing concern. Yu Miaodon had also calmed down. She had already seen Wu Xueming's worry, but she laughed it off. "Xueming, what's there to worry about? Can they stop us from dying together?" However, Wu Xueming didn't feel relieved from Yu Miaodon's words. Instead, he said glumly, "Sorry, Miaodon, I'm a man, but I can't even protect my own woman." After speaking, Wu Xueming had stopped the car, and Yi Mo knew what he had meant by that. He wanted him to get off the car. For Yi Mo, it was the best for him to get off here. He already had enough troubles and didn't expect that a random ride he took would have as much trouble as he had. However, if he got off here, his heart wouldn't be able to rest. He wasn't some heartless person. When he needed help, he waved his hand, and they helped him. So now, when the same people who helped him were in trouble, he couldn't just pat his butt and leave. Regardless, Yi Mo felt this was unacceptable. Seeing Yi Mo frowned, but still not get off the car, Wu Xueming quickly told him, "Brother Yi, hurry up and get off the car. The power I offended is too great." "Perhaps it won't be long before they catch up to us. They might even stop us ahead." Yi Mo smiled and said, "Although I don't know what sort of person Brother Wu offended, I really want to stay and help you. After all, you helped me before. If I don't help you, that can't be acceptable no matter what. I think that with one extra person, it's one more share of power. I hope Brother Wu won't mind." Wu Xueming looked at Yi Mo and sighed. "I finally understand now why you would offend the local authorities there. With your personality, it would be a miracle if you didn't offend them. But I really admire your character, and it's a pity that I can't share a drink with you. Brother Yi, the people I offended aren't ordinary people, and they definitely can't compare with a small local authority you offended. You don't understand the complications, and I won't bother to explain. Quickly get off the car." Seeing Wu Xueming insist, Yi Mo had no choice and said, "In that case, Brother Wu, which is the next city?" "Jiamu Town. It's a small town. Although it's only 20 minutes' drive, it takes slightly longer by foot." Wu Xueming thought Yi Mo wanted to walk to the small town and rest. Thus he introduced it quickly. "Okay, Then you can just drop me off there. At the small town, I'll be able to find my own ride. You won't reject helping me out with this, would you? Yi Mo smiled faintly. Sigh, 20 minutes is enough for them to find us. In that case, I'll help you one more time. We'll take the small road. Perhaps we really might be able to escape. Afterward, Wu Xueming turned the car and soon drove onto a small road. And even though the size of the path was limited, Wu Xueming was driving even faster. It had been 20 minutes since Yu Miaodon's phone call, and in the distance ahead, the road lights of the small town could be seen. However, a clear whirring sound could be heard from the distance. Wu Xueming suddenly stopped the car, but didn't say anything, and his face gradually became uglier. Yi Mo nodded as he recognized that it wasn't surprising that Wu Xueming was scared. He had his reason to. These people's power weren't just strong, it was overpowering. They could even find a helicopter. That whirring sound was obviously the noise made by the chopper moving toward their vehicle. Sorry, Brother Yi, I got you caught into this, and you won't be able to leave anymore even if you wanted to. Since they have already found us, they won't let you escape even if you leave alone. After apologizing, Wu Xueming didn't pay any more attention to Yi Mo. Instead, he grabbed Yu Miaodon's hand and no longer hid the worry and pain in his eyes. Xueming, it's okay. It's fine as long as we can be together. They can stop us from living together. But can they stop us from dying together? At this moment, Yu Miaodon didn't seem worried at all. Even if I die, I will drag two with me. Wu Xueming suddenly said cruelly. At the same time, he took out a pistol from the car and passed a knife to Yi Mo. Use this to protect yourself. Sigh. Yi Mo smiled and waved his hand. No need, I have things to protect myself with. Originally, Wu Xueming felt guilty for dragging Yi Mo into this, but now he looked at him differently. The enemy had mobilized a helicopter, and there was no way Yi Mo hadn't realized how strong the enemy was by now, yet he was still very calm. It meant that he wasn't an ordinary man. Thinking about this, Wu Xueming said, Brother Yi, have you ever heard of Metal River? Yi Mo shook his head. He had really never heard of them. Wu Xueming continued, It's not a surprise that you haven't heard of them because you aren't a part of that world. Metal River is the only gang that isn't controlled by Nanqing in the mainland. Although they aren't as big as Nanqing, Metal River is able to be independent of Nanqing, and it could even be said that they are the biggest gang in the mainland of China because Nanqing's power range is no longer limited to the mainland but also overseas. Metal River is so strong because of the boss of Metal River. He is called Metal Mountain and has a title, Metal Chain stretching across the river, and the name Metal River also came from his title. The person I offended should be ranked in the top 3 inside Metal River, and his name is Huang. You can tell how powerful he is by him being able to send out a helicopter overtly. In the entire Metal River, other than the gang leader, and the second gang leader who never shows his face, Huang is the strongest. Although Huang might not be the actual third in power, the gang leader rarely concerns himself with the business in the gang. Most of the things are managed by Huang himself, so he has a lot of power. Although Wu Xueming didn't continue talking, Yi Mo had already understood the gist of it. Offending Huang meant offending an incredibly powerful boss of a gang. No wonder he didn't have much fighting will. In this situation, he would at most be able to drag a few with him to his death. Chapter 88. Perhaps they came to give us the helicopter. Chapter 88. Perhaps they came to give us the helicopter. Actually, the thing is, I'm also from Metal River. Brother Metal Mountain is very kind to me and also has high hopes for me. He even wanted me to take Huang's position. Besides, Huang is also interested in Miaodon, but since she had followed me instead, Huang already wanted to kill me. However, if I was really killed by Huang, Brother Metal Mountain definitely wouldn't blame him, since if you want to live the gang life, you will need to have the resolve to live this dangerously. Now that I think of it, I suspect that Brother Metal Mountain intentionally said that in front of everyone while he was drunk to test me and see if I could survive Huang's scheme. If I died, it would have meant that I didn't fulfill the prerequisite to that position, and I wouldn't blame him for this. Since I was the one to chose this path, I should have the resolve of living like this. Wu Xueming seemed to try to ease Yu Miaodong's worry and tried to explain the situation to Yemo as to find something to talk about. However, he had his eyes set on the helicopter that descended in the open ground not far away. Yemo sighed as he really couldn't understand what Wu Xueming was thinking. He was actually willing to be used as a pawn. If it had been him, he definitely wouldn't be willing to be manipulated by that metal mountain, even if it meant that he would take over Huang's position if he won. In Yemo's eyes, Wu Xueming's character wasn't suitable for gangs and mafias. Brother Yi, I beg of you. Later, I will hold them there and not let this helicopter fly while you take Miaodong away. I don't want Miaodong to be in the hands of that Huang animal. Wu Xueming implored Yi Emo. Hearing Wu Xueming's words, Yu Miaodong suddenly grabbed his hand and retorted, No, Xueming! Even if it's in death, I won't leave you this time. Yi Emo also shook his head and said, Brother Wu, it might not even be possible anyway. Look! The moonlight was beautiful, and they could see clearly that 5 people had descended from the helicopter. 1 man had an assault rifle, while the others 4 had submachine guns. Not only so, but they all had bulletproof helmets. Seeing this, Wu Xueming's eyes also dimmed. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get away no matter what. However, Yi Mo didn't mind the guns in these people's hands. There were only 5 people. He wasn't worried at all. What he cared about was that helicopter. He thought that if he had a helicopter, he would be able to go far away immediately. He turned and looked at Wu Xueming, whose face changed rapidly. Brother Wu, don't worry. We'll see once they come over. Perhaps they came to give us the helicopter. Although he didn't understand why Yi Mo would be joking in this situation, Wu Xueming still nodded. He only had 4 bullets in his pistol anyway, and if he needed to save 2 for suicide, he only had 2 bullets for 5 men, but these 2 probably wouldn't be much use anyways. As they spoke, the 5 had rapidly charged in front of them and surrounded the car. Yi Mo slowly opened the car and got off first. However, he kept his spirit sense on the 5 people. If someone tried to move his finger to pull the trigger, he would kill him immediately. The reason he hadn't killed him by now was only because he couldn't pilot the helicopter, so he needed to keep the pilot alive. Seeing Yi Mo get off the car, Wu Xueming sighed as he also pulled Yu Miaodong's hand and got off the car. Brother White Shark, there's an extra person. What do we do? They apparently hadn't expected an additional person and were puzzled. Take away Wu and Yu and take care of the extra person, the leading man said. At this moment, Yi Mo opened his mouth. Don't talk about killing this quickly. First, which one of you here is a helicopter pilot? Hearing Yi Mo's words, the leading man, White Shark, stopped the man who was about to fire. I am. Why did you ask? Oh, I want to save that person's life. As Yi Mo finished his words, a few gusts of wind brushed past the 4-man's eyes as 4 nails accurately pierced their throat. These common thugs weren't a threat at all to him, even with guns in their hands. Ugh, arg. After a few sounds, the 4 gunmen wanted to cover their throats, but realized that they didn't even have the strength to raise their hands. In the blink of an eye, the 4 collapsed lifeless. White Shark looked at this shocking scene, and, before he even came to his sense, the AK-47 in his hand was grabbed by the young man who had just spoken. You! At this moment, Wu Xueming finally reacted as he looked at Yi Mo in shock. He didn't think that someone who stopped him on the road would be so terrifying. Immediately, light shone out of Wu Xueming's eyes as he realized that Yi Mo was a master. Definitely one of the legendary master. Who are you? How dare you interfere with the business of Metal River? You... Speaking to there, he suddenly realized that the youth in front of him not only interfered with the matter of Metal River, but he had also killed the people of Metal River. At this moment, Yu Miaodong also realized how strong Yi Mo was. and was in no less surprise than Wu Xueming. Yi Mo turned around and said to Wu Xueming, who was still in shock, "Brother Wu, you guys go into the helicopter first. I'll clean up here." Wu Xueming also knew now wasn't the time to ask questions, so he quickly held Yi Miaodong and went toward the helicopter. The shock in his heart still hadn't calmed down. Seeing Wu Xueming and his woman go toward the helicopter, Yi Mo looked at White Shark and said, "Dump these few people in the car and set it on fire. I will count to 10. If you still haven't done it by then, you will join them in the car." This time, White Shark reacted quickly to Yi Mo's words. He had already completely understood what sort of person he was facing. Someone who could kill without blinking more easily than them. Anyway, this wasn't the first time he had burned a car. Thus, he immediately dragged the 4 bodies with his quickest speed into the car and ripped off a piece of fabric that he imbued with gasoline before setting the car on fire. "Pick up the guns on the ground and get on the chopper," Yi Mo said coldly. Hearing that Yi Mo wanted him to grab the guns, White Shark immediately rejoiced in his heart. This man actually allowed him to pick up the gun. "Do you believe that before you could pull the trigger, I can kill you 100 times? Yi Mo seemed to know what White Shark was thinking, and his words froze White Shark in his tracks. In the end, he picked up the guns and didn't dare to play any tricks. Just as Yi Mo and White Shark came to the helicopter, the car exploded, making a lot of noises. Fortunately, this place was still quite far from the town, and although the sound of the explosion was loud, no one came. Inside the helicopter, Wu Xueming and Yi Miaodong had already sat down, and the two were looking at Yi Mo differently now. However, what shocked Yi Mo was that Wu Xueming was seated in the pilot's cockpit. So he asked, "Brother Wu, you know how to pilot a chopper?" Wu Xueming nodded. "Yes, I'm not too comfortable with this person driving. I had flown a helicopter before in the army." "In that case, you are useless." Yi Mo looked at White Shark and said coldly. White Shark saw the situation and immediately realized that Yi Mo wanted to get rid of him, so he quickly said, "Don't kill me. I can still help you." "Oh, we'll see. Come in then." Afterward, Yi Mo turned to Wu Xueming and said, "Brother Wu, start the helicopter." "Okay, where do we go now?" Wu Xueming saw that Yi Mo had come inside and flown the helicopter into the sky. Yi Mo thought for a moment and asked, "If Huang dies, does that mean you no longer have to run?" "If Huang dies, of course, I don't have to run anymore. The one who wants to kill me is only Huang, not—" Wu Xueming suddenly stopped talking and looked at Yi Mo. He stuttered. "Brother Yi, you don't mean—" Yi Mo smiled and said, "Well, we were fated to meet. I am going to help you kill Huang. Besides, I still have some things I need your help with." He was going to help Wu Xueming kill Huang because, firstly, he felt that Wu Xueming was a good person to him, and secondly, if Wu Xueming had the power of Metal River, it would help him in his escape. "Master, if you want to kill Huang, I can help you." White Shark suddenly said. Yi Mo looked coldly at White Shark, whose reaction was quite fast. The only reason he had kept him alive was because he had planned to use him to kill Huang anyway. Chapter 89. Fighting for Power. Chapter 89. Fighting for power. Seeing that Yi Mo's eyes were cold, White Shark quickly said, "Huang is still waiting for the results. I'll just need to report later that the people have been captured and then take you back." Yi Mo wanted to hear these words. He turned to Wu Xueming. "Brother Wu, give the helicopter to him. I'll watch him. I trust he won't dare to play any games." Then Yi Mo said to White Shark, "Fly the helicopter back and give Huang a call right now. Tell him that everything is normal." White Shark didn't dare to disobey Yi Mo's orders a single bit. Perhaps other people only threatened, but he saw Yi Mo's power and cruelty with his own eyes. He killed 4 fully armed men without moving at all, and at the same time his face didn't change at all. This man was too ferocious, and White Shark was afraid of annoying Yemo, so he hurriedly said, "Huang told me, when I capture these people, I am to fly straight to Jing City." Jing City. Wu Xueming knew. This plane definitely didn't come from there, as it was almost 2,000 kilometers from here. How could the helicopter fly over? As if seeing through Wu Xueming's doubt, White Shark quickly explained, "I just came from Qiping. I was originally planning to stop Brother Wu, but I received your location at the spur of the moment, so I came." This helicopter is also modified, and its fuel tank can last for around 2H and 50 minutes. Furthermore, its speed is much faster than regular helicopters. Since it had already flown for around 20 minutes, it should still be able to travel for another 2.5 hours. After that, we can refuel at Wangchuan and finally reach Jing City in one go. Speaking to here, he paused for a moment before continuing. Brother Wu should know that Wangchuan has a petrol station controlled by Metal River, and because this helicopter has been modified, many parts are more advanced, so the oil from normal petrol stations can't be used. Although it could still be forcibly used, we may get problems on the way. Wu Xueming nodded and said, "We'll do that then. You can start flying straight to Jing City." He knew about the petrol station at Wangchuan. Yi Mo had studied the map and had seen Jing City before. That place was close to Russia and was also a borderline place. However, they would still need a few hours to get to Jing City. Yi Mo looked at the burning car down below and thought that even if someone realized what had happened inside the car, it would be a few hours later. By that time, he would have finished his business. It was as White Shark said. After 2 hours, the helicopter stopped at Wangchuan to refuel, and perhaps they had already received a message, but no one suspected a thing. After leaving Wangchuan, it was still not daylight yet. A little over 7 a.m., the helicopter stopped at a large private manor. The helicopter's speed was indeed fast, and Yemo estimated that it could reach about 430 to 500 kilometers per hour. Before, when Yemo had followed Windong to that manor, he had already considered it to be large enough. But compared to this one, it was actually minuscule. Thinking about Windong, he remembered the model and the data that Windong gave to him, which were still in his bag now. He didn't know what it was for, and didn't have the interest to look at it either. Wu Xueming saw Yemo looking over, and seemed to understood what Yemo was thinking. He shook his head and said, "The people here are all Huangs. He would send my people away, but there's also a part of people who are only loyal to Metal River and not Huang." "Huang is coming out." Wu Xueming saw a man walk out from a mansion and said. Yemo looked at the man. He was around 50, with triangular-shaped eyes, and was very obese. He no longer had hair on the front part of his head and wore a big leather jacket, and 2 bodyguards were following behind him. "Take me down," Yemo said to White Shark coldly. During the flight, he was wondering how he would face Huang, as there should definitely be people preventing from coming too close to him. He even wondered if he had to go on a massacre to draw him out. However, he hadn't expected that Huang actually came out on his own. "Haha, Wu Xueming, you actually dare to take an interest at my position and even steal the woman that I want. In order to wait for you today, I didn't sleep for the whole night. For every day that you stay alive, I live a day of unrest." A coarse laughter sounded. The arrogance and confidence in his tone were conspicuous. In his eyes, a few elite henchmen and a helicopter with a few AK-47 would be more than enough to capture a woman and Wu Xueming. Huang saw White Shark leaving the helicopter, followed by only one person that he didn't recognize, yet no one else behind them got out. He immediately stopped his footsteps vigilantly and looked at White Shark. "Who is the person behind you? Stop, don't move." As soon as Huang spoke, the 2 bodyguards behind him had come up to stop White Shark and Yemo. Since he was here, Yemo wouldn't be merciful. He had so much on him that he no longer cared. A few nails in his hands flew out extremely fast. The 2 bodyguards didn't even mumble before blood spilled out from their forehead. White Shark started as cold sweat trickled down his back. He had seen all sorts of ways of killing, but he had never seen such a simple but effective way of doing so. It was too horrifying. Huang had a fast reaction. He knew things weren't good and immediately reached for his gun. However, Yemo didn't give him any opportunity as the nail in his hands already flown out. Even at the moment of his death, Huang wouldn't believe that he would die so easily. Even if someone had charged in with a gun, it wouldn't be so easy, yet now he was killed by someone who only raised his hand. He only felt dissatisfaction as his consciousness was starting to dissipate. At this moment, tens of men armed with swords rushed out, and just when Yemo was about to start a massacre, Wu Xueming behind him suddenly yelled, "Stop now! I will be responsible here. Are you going to rebel?" The scene immediately calmed. Many people didn't know if they should attack, but a few men raised their guns, and before their fingers even touched the trigger, they were killed by Yemo. Wu Xueming still had some authority. Other than a few of Huang's loyal followers, most of the people were still only loyal to Metal River. As for who took over after Huang's death, they didn't really care. They also knew about the fighting between Huang and Wu Xueming. They had seen too much of these fights already. The day that Wu Xueming killed Huang, Metal Mountain passed down his words, allowing Wu Xueming to take over. At the same time, Wu Xueming's men also came back, allowing him to fully stabilize his position. In a grandiloquent mansion in Hong Kong, a middle-aged man sat on the master chair. Opposite from him was a 50-or-so-year-old Taoist, and the two were tasting some tea. The middle-aged man was the big boss of Metal River, Metal Mountain, and if he hadn't said anything, perhaps no one would know that the second in command of Metal River was a Taoist. The Taoist who sat next to Metal Mountain was the second in command, the master, Xian Daoram one. His powers were significantly higher than Metal Mountain, but he didn't have that much desire for power and put most of his time and energy on cultivation. Unless there were major affairs in the gang, he usually wouldn't show himself. Similarly, no one knew that the reason Nongqing didn't touch Metal River at all was nothing related to Metal River's personal power, but because of this Xian Daoran. "This Wu Xueming is not bad. Your step was right." After sipping some tea, the Taoist opposite said. Metal Mountain contemplated for a moment before saying, "I thought that Wu Xueming could only at most survive Huang's pursuit. When I heard that he had taken a woman with him, I didn't even have any hope that he could survive, but I didn't expect him to be actually able to take out Huang. Huang has really been regressing these few years, and Metal River needs some fresh blood. I just hope that this Wu Xueming won't disappoint me. Otherwise, he will be the next Huang." When he talked about these matters, Metal Mountain didn't have any emotional changes. It was as if this was naturally so. After a while, Metal Mountain continued, "I heard that Qian Baihao was recently on a rampage because of the death of his only son. But he'd best not touch our Metal River. Otherwise, we won't let this go easily. You don't need to worry about this. I'm about to break through. I just came out this time to have a stroll, so that I can focus on breaking through. Once I reach the Earth stage, I will go meet this Qianlong too." "I believe he is a man who understands reality." Xian Doran's tone was very calm but had an undeniable coldness. Notes 1. Daorin is an honorific for the people who practice Tao. Chapter 90. Plan. Chapter 90. Plan Yunbing had a beauty sleep. When she woke up, she suddenly thought of something and subconsciously reached out her hand to grab, but it was empty. He had left. Yunbing suddenly felt that she had lost something, and even though she knew that Yemo was leaving today, she didn't expect to leave without a farewell. However, she found a letter for her beside the bed. "Sister Bing, thank you for saving my life. I'll come back for you one day. I'm leaving now. Yemo." Reading the words in her hands, Yunbing suddenly felt relieved. If he said that he would come back for her, he definitely would. Although she didn't have deeper feelings for Yemo, she just liked the feeling of staying with him and started wondering if she had been too lonely. But immediately Yunbing couldn't help but worry about Yemo's safety. Ah, what? You killed Qianlongto's only son. No wonder Nanqing went crazy recently. His people are everywhere, and some had even come to our place. But because our boss didn't say anything, we didn't dare to start fights with them. I really didn't think that the one who had killed Qian Shiping was you. Hearing that Yemo had killed Qian Shiping, Wu Xueming was very shocked and couldn't calm himself even after a long time. Wu Xueming was elated after taking control of Huang's position and especially about being able to live forever with Yu Miaodan. However, after hearing Yemo's words, he could only be shocked. Who was Qianlongtu? He was someone who had a proper army and was even more powerful than the leaders of some countries. He could do things however he liked. Could country leaders do that? And Qianlongtu only had one son, and everyone knew this. Regardless of the underground society or the government authority, they would all focus on him. However, Yi Mo had actually killed him. Yi Mo looked very calmly at Wu Xueming. As soon as Wu Xueming showed any signs that he didn't dare to shelter him anymore, he would leave. He would eventually find a place where he could go. The reason he helped Wu Xueming was partly because he wanted Wu Xueming to help him for the time being. After all, his power was still too low, but as soon as he reached the third stage, even if Qianlongtu didn't come for him, he would look for him. He wasn't someone who could be hunted without consequence. Those who hunted him would eventually be hunted back by him. Brother Yi, originally I was planning to invite you to join Metal River, but now it seems that this plan is implausible. If you really join Metal River, this would not only harm you, but also Metal River. Wu Xueming had finally calmed down. Yi Mo nodded. Anyway, even without the incident with Qianlongtu, he still wouldn't join Metal River. That life didn't suit him. After staying silent for a while, Wu Xueming said, I can help you get a new identity, but you also need to change your face and find a place to hide for a while. This isn't something that can be solved by going overseas. Yi Mo learned the might of Qianlongtu from Wu Xueming, and since he had killed his only son, as soon as Qianlongtu would learn that he was the killer, only the craziest of revenge awaited him. Ever since he came here, Yi Mo had never felt such an urge to raise his power. He knew that if he didn't hurry and get stronger, he would be devoured completely based on the things he had done. Right now, he only had two ways of getting stronger. One was to immediately plant the silver heart grass, and the second was to go look for purple heart vine in the desert, which required luck. Comparatively, the silver heart grass was more reliable. However, it needed 2 years to mature, and Yi Mo couldn't wait for that long. If he didn't reach the third stage as quick as possible, perhaps his body would have disappeared after 2 years. He had made up his mind he would find a proper place first and plant the silver heart grass. Then he would immediately go to the desert. Both of these things couldn't wait. When he reached the third stage of Qi gathering, he would personally greet this Qianlongtu and tell him in front of his face that he killed his son. But what could Qianlongtu do? This hunt made him extremely annoyed. Whether it was the Song family or Nanqing, he felt extremely unhappy. After all, he was a cultivator, but he was hunted by mortals and had no choice but to run. This wasn't something he could accept. However, Wu Xueming didn't disappoint him. He really was a good friend he could depend on. Although he knew that hiding Yemo's identity might cause a lot of trouble for him in the future, Wu Xueming still didn't hesitate at all. Without Yemo, he would have been long dead, so he didn't even tell Yu Miaodan about Yemo's identity. Wu Xueming helped Yemo create a new identity. The name was Mo Yi, and in order to prevent recognition, Yemo drew a mark on his face. It looked a bit ugly, but the image on the passport had this mark. He was forced to do this because Nanqing's power was too great and seeped into almost every hole. Meanwhile, Yemo still wanted to find a stable place to grow his silver heart grass and didn't want to be discovered while he was planting it. That was too important to him. The weather in Jing City was too cold, which wasn't suitable for growing a silver heart grass. And besides, it was easy to catch attention staying directly there. Yemo took out some of the soil from his house he had grabbed before and asked Wu Shueming to help him get it analyzed. The results showed that parts of the southern cities were fine, but not all of them, while most of the northern cities and other places couldn't support the growth of a silver heart grass. At last, Yemo finally decided and picked Luotsang in the Jiangnan province, which was neighboring Shanghai, one of the big cities with almost 5 million in population. The reason Yemo chose Luotsang this time was irrelevant to Qi Wanqing. It was because the earth there had the most similarities to the earth he brought for analysis, and also pretty much all the underground world was governed by Metal River under Wu Shueming. Another reason was that there was a flight straight to Dakumile, and from there he could go straight to the desert. A week later, Yemo left Jing City for Luotsang with his new identity. Although Wu Shueming had a lot of power in Jing City, Yemo still chose to take the train as he didn't want to raise a sliver of suspicion toward him. It wasn't because he was scared, but because his time was really short and he didn't have the time to fight with these people. Yemo chose a compartment seat since he didn't take the money Wu Shueming gave to him. For Yemo, he helped Wu Shueming and Wu Shueming helped him. So the two were friends now, but just friends. If he took Wu Shueming's money, he would feel that he owed him and didn't like that feeling. Besides, Yemo had still around $50,000 in his bag. There wasn't a direct train from Jing City to Luotsang, so Yemo took the train to Zheng State first and changed train from there to Luotsang. When Yemo got on the train, his compartment wasn't full. Only 2 people, including him. It was a woman in her 40s. She looked astute, but was obviously tired as she didn't even say a word before falling asleep. Yemo thought that this woman was too careless. No matter how tired she was, she had to at least stay alerted since there might be some thieves on the train, however. There was only Yemo and her now. Of course, Yemo wouldn't stoop so low as to steal from a woman. Even if she had $1 million USD on her, he wouldn't even look at it. He found a seat and closed his eyes to meditate. At the same time, he thought about how to settle down once he arrived at Luotsang and wondered if he should find a job first or rent a house. Chapter 91. So what if you steal it? Chapter 91. So what if you steal it? Yemo was sure that when he arrived at Luotsang, he would need to find a proper place to grow his silver heart grass. And until it was fully grown, he would not only waste time but also raise suspicion if he watched it germinate every day. Besides, although he had tens of thousands of dollars, that money would be gone soon enough as he would buy food and medicine. When the train arrived at the Xinyang station, another 2 people came in, and the 4 people compartment was filled immediately. One of them was a middle-aged man in his 30s with a black bag in his hands. He had very dodgy eyes as he scanned the compartment and noticed the woman sleeping. So he smiled and greeted Yemo. "Hello, I'm Jin Jibing, and I'm going to Beijing. How should I call you, friend?" "Mo Yi." Yemo's words were very simple, as he didn't really like talking to strangers. This was his habit after long years of cultivation. Also, he didn't particularly like Jin Jibing's dodgy eyes. At this moment, the woman in her 40s also woke up and sat on the bed. Jin Jibing seemed to feel that Yemo didn't like to talk much, so he immediately greeted the woman. After a little nap, this woman became more spirited. However, she was quite talkative, and soon they started to talk about everything. Yemo heard that this woman was called Wang Yan and was going to Beijing too. However, she had also some business in Xinyang. He was no longer interested in their conversation and looked at the other person who came. This was a young man in his 20s who was wearing very ordinary clothes. He even had a few patches on his pants, meaning that his economic condition wasn't too good. Mo didn't know why he would buy a bed ticket. However, this youth seemed scared of something, and once he came in, he went to his bed and no longer talked. He just clutched his bag tightly. Seeing his vigilant attitude, Mo thought that he was more experienced than that woman in her 40s. "Little brother, do you have gold in your bag?" "Haha, I see you're very alert." "It's okay, we're all strangers, but you just need to be careful. There is no need to hug your bag this tightly." Jean jibing talked with the woman for a while and suddenly looked at that innocent youth joking with him. "No, no gold. Just some tools to cure illness." This innocent youth didn't seem to expect that someone would talk to him and immediately stuttered. "Oh, I didn't know you were a doctor. Excuse my rudeness before. What's your surname?" Seeing the youth's anxiety, Jean jibing asked once again. However, his tone wasn't contemptuous. "I'm Eru. My medical skills were passed down from my ancestors." The anxiousness in Eru's tone was still obvious, showing that it was his first time leaving his home. I really couldn't tell you were a doctor. Where do you plan to go?" Wang Yan's tone was obviously suspicious toward Eru being a doctor. However, she wasn't straightforward about it. Eru blushed more after being asked like that by Wang Yan. He mumbled, "I got a ticket to Jing State, so I'm going there to have a look." Mo had already understood that this Eru had never left home before and probably didn't even know where he got the ticket to Jing State. Although he didn't know what Eru's medical skills were like, he could imagine that he definitely wouldn't be able to survive properly there. Perhaps he may even end up begging in the streets. However, Eru gave Mo a good idea. If he started a clinic in Luotsang and hired this innocent and honest-looking Eru to help, he would have time to cultivate and grow his silver heart grass. The most important point was that when he left Luotsang, Eru would be able to look after it. Hearing Eru's words, both Jean jibing and Wang Yan obviously didn't believe him, so they quickly lost interest in him. However, Mo's interest for Eru had picked. Seeing that Mo chatted a bit with Eru before he stopped and closed his eyes to sleep, Jibing suddenly took out a magazine from his bag and a pair of glasses. However, Mo was alert. When this Jean Jibing walked in, the way his eyes moved around didn't seem like he was short-sighted. What would he take out glasses for now? Mo closed his eyes and didn't pay attention to him anymore, but he kept his spirit sense scanning Jean Jibing constantly. After not long, Jean Jibing no longer looked at the magazine and scanned his eyes toward Mo and Wang Yan's bags. When he looked toward Mo's bag, there seemed to be joy on his face. Of course, Mo knew that he had tens of thousands of dollars in his bag, and with Jean Jibing showing such complexion, it meant that he had realized what was in his bag. Mo was quite surprised. How did he know he had money in his bag? Did he have spirit sense too? But soon, Mo figured out that Jean Jibing didn't have spirit sense, but there was definitely something with his glasses. It was probably some infrared scanner or something that allowed him to see through things. It was already 10 p.m. at night, and Mo pretended to be sleeping. He wanted to know whose bag Jean Jibing would try to steal first. However, he thought that he might probably be his target first because he had the most cash. If only he had a storage ring, he wouldn't have so much trouble. As expected, Jean Jibing brought his bag over to Mo's side not long after Mo fell asleep. He reached out his hand and opened his bag, stuffing all the cash inside his bag. Mo sneered and didn't stop him. He knew that these thieves would take everything. He didn't need to get angry. He just used the blanket to cover his hands and at the same time took back the money Jean Jibing stole from him. Then he also took everything other than Jean Jibing's clothes from his bag. He had spirit sense, so it was as clear as using his eyes. Eru had fallen asleep already, but Wang Yan had obviously noticed Jean Jibing's movement. However, Jean Jibing turned around and glared at her. She was so frightened that she immediately held her mouth with her hands, not daring to make a noise. At this time, the horn sounded. They had arrived at a station. Jean Jibing had already taken everything and grabbed the bag as he was ready to leave. At this moment, a girl in her 20s walked past the compartment and saw Jean Jibing's movement. She immediately knew that he was a thief, but more importantly, the victim was still asleep. The girl saw the thief and immediately yelled. Yet Jean Jibing grabbed his bag and didn't care if other people found out as he dashed out of the carriage of the train. Arg, that thief stole your things and you're still sleeping. This girl saw Jean Jibing run away and was sure that Yimo's possession had been stolen, so she reminded Yimo loudly. Yimo opened his eyes and saw this extremely worried girl and realized that she was a student. No wonder she had such a sense of justice. Seeing that other people were worried about him, he had no choice but to smile and say, I actually don't have much in my bag, so it doesn't matter if he steals it. You, Sai, you should call the police immediately. I'll help you with that. This girl was really warm-hearted. Yimo thought that the people he didn't want to deal with the most now was the police, so he quickly waved his hand. Don't mind about this, I really don't have much. There's no need to call the police, but still, thank you. This girl saw that Yimo really didn't want to call the police, so she shook her head helplessly and crossed the carriage. Seeing this girl leave, Yimo immediately stuffed everything in the bag. Originally, he had $50,000, but now he had $20,000 extra. Other than this, there were also some miscellaneous things and a large stack of identity documents. Yimo stuffed them all in his bag. Although she didn't see Yimo steal everything back, Wang Yan saw with her own eyes Jean Jibing take a few notes from Yimo's bag. But this young man said there wasn't anything in his bag. Obviously, he didn't believe that he had his things stolen, and she couldn't help but shake her head. Chapter 92. On the Train. Chapter 92. On the train, although Yu Eru was very vigilant before, he was sleeping like a log now and didn't even realize what had happened. As though she was feeling guilty for Yimo, Wang Yan actually gave him $200 and said, Brother, I know you had your money stolen before. This 200 is not much, but at least you can save it for an emergency. Yimo looked at this Wang Yan in surprise. She actually felt guilty for what happened before and still had some conscience. At this moment, Yu Eru also woke up. He looked at Yimo and Wang Yan, obviously not knowing what was going on. Yimo pushed the money back and smiled. No need, I have money, I don't need yours. Wang Yan didn't expect Yimo to reject her offer. In her opinion, although Yimo was a bit better than Yu Eru, he didn't really wear any famous brands either. It could only be said he was neat and tidy. Perhaps he would have an urgent use for his money later, but he just didn't know now. However, she became worried for Yimo rejecting her money. I really saw your money being stolen, but I didn't dare to say anything at the time because I was scared of him taking revenge on me. Take these $200, otherwise I would really feel guilty. She was speaking the truth this time because she had seen too many accounts of people reporting thieves and getting stabbed. I said his money was stolen, but he didn't believe me. Now look, you saw it too. You have no money now, right? I'll give you $100 too. I'm still a student, so I don't have much money. At this moment, the girl who came over before had a bowl of noodles in her hands, and hearing Wang Yan's words, she also started to take out money. Hearing these two people's words, Yu Eru seemed to understand that this young man had his money stolen. He didn't back out and also took out something covered in layers and layers of paper. Eventually, he took out 50 and said, Brother, I don't have much money either, so I'll help you with 50. My grandpa said there were a lot of thieves outside and told me to be careful. Looks like that Jean Jibing was a thief. Yimo saw these three people were warm-hearted. Although he was a bit frustrated, he was still grateful. This world wasn't completely cold, especially Yu Eru. Yimo saw that although he had a thick stack of money, they were all 50s. Although this person was slightly simple-minded, he was a great person. Yi Mo saw the situation and could only take Wang Yan's $200 and said to the other two, "I'll be fine with 200, take back your money." He could tell this girl was a student. She even said so herself. And Yu Eru was obviously not wealthy. Although this woman in her 40s didn't wear any pricey brands and bought a bed ticket, she had obviously bought it purely to rest, meaning that she wasn't a wealthy person. Seeing Yi Mo accepting her money, Wang Yan was obviously relieved. She felt extremely guilty for simply watching the thief taking tens of thousands from Yi Mo, but didn't dare to call him out. After Yi Mo had taken the money, he took our 3 herbs from his bag and gave them to Wang Yan. "I won't take your money for free. Take these 3 herbs." The 2 women looked stunned at Yi Mo, wondering why she would want his herbs. However, Yu Eru stared at these herbs that he had never seen before and wandered off in his mind. "Big brother, you're also a Chinese doctor." Yu Eru said, astonished. Yi Mo shook his head. "I'm not really a Chinese doctor. I just have some understanding of herbs and like to collect them." At this moment, Wang Yan reacted and quickly pushed the herbs away. "Big brother, I don't have any use for these things. Take them back." Yi Mo smiled. "Other people might not have a use for these 3 herbs, but you do." "Why?" the girl asked, astonished. She had already been confused when Yi Mo gave the 3 herbs to Wang Yan, but now she was even more confused when Yi Mo said this. Seeing that another person asked the question for her, Wang Yan didn't talk and wanted to see how Yi Mo would answer. "Because you still don't have children, you should know your condition better than anyone else. Take back these herbs and boil them 3 times. Remember not to add anything else, just these 3. It would be best if you drink the crumbs too, then you would be fine." Yi Mo could tell that Wang Yan had some problems with her body. Not only was she not able to give birth, but in the long run, she would barely be able to live for another 20 years at most. He found these herbs in the borderline of Vietnam and still had some remaining. Normal people wouldn't know its use, because these 3 had to be consumed at the same time. To be honest, he was missing a herb that replenished the essence of the body. But Yi Mo saw that Wang Yan's body was quite sturdy, so although she may suffer a little, it shouldn't be a problem. However, before she could drink this, he still needed to use his qi to help wash her meridians. "Ah, you really can tell that I have." Wang Yan took the 3 herbs excitedly with her hand shaking. Suddenly, she bowed down many times to Yi Mo, but still couldn't say anything. She had been married more than 10 years, but just wasn't able to conceive a child. Not only was his mother-in-law's family looking down on her, but even her neighbors were insulting her. Even though she had looked at many places and spent a lot of money, she still couldn't solve the problem. And although her husband still loved her, she didn't feel good herself. The frustrated Wang Yan spent all her time on business, running day and night tirelessly. Now that someone said her disease could be cured so simply, how could she not be happy? She was so excited that she couldn't talk anymore. She was already 39, and after another 2 years, she would truly start to feel hopeless. But soon she reacted and took out a card from her bag. "This is a bank card. There aren't much inside, but it's my way to thank you. The password." Yi Mo couldn't say anything, so he stopped the conversation. "Keep the card. I have enough money. Besides, how do you know that I'm not trying to cheat you?" Then Yi Mo with extreme speed grabbed Wang Yan's wrist and helped her unlock her meridians without anybody noticing. At this moment, Wang Yan still hadn't realized what was happening, so she just took back the card and suddenly thought, "Yeah, what if he's a fraud?" But then why would he say it out loud? However, the frauds nowadays have a lot of tricks, and some even pretend to be generous. Who knows? After thinking for a while, Wang Yan took back the card. "Big brother, how about you leave your number with me? If this can really cure my condition, I must repay you." Yi Mo waved his hand. "I don't have a phone, and there's no need for repayment. Furthermore," Since you have already paid for these 3 herbs, there's no need for anything else. Big brother, your medical skills are so great, you don't even need to check her meridians, and you could tell her condition. Even my grandpa isn't as skilled as you. Yu Eru suddenly said. Yi Mo said, Eru, you are a Chinese doctor, and I think that you're quite a good person. Would you like to pursue a career with me in Luotsang? I plan to open a clinic, and if you want, you can help me out. Of course I do. I don't have any good place to go anyway. Seeing that Yi Mo invited him, the lost Yu Eru agreed without hesitation. At this moment, Wang Yan also calmed down. She looked at Yi Mo and then at Yu Eru, but couldn't be sure if Yi Mo was a fraud. However, Yi Mo helped her before, so although she didn't know if these few herbs were real, she couldn't say much. The girl saw that Yi Mo was a doctor as well and admired him. Now that Yi Mo said he was going Luotsang, she immediately said, I'm also going to Luotsang. We can go together then. Wait, I'll carry my stuff here. Fine, we can help each other with more people. Yi Mo didn't mind this girl taking the train with them. Although this girl wasn't very pretty, she had a good heart and she looked decent too. Besides, she had wanted to help Yi Mo before. I'll help you carry things. Yu Eru was a very gentle person, and now that they were familiar with each other, he actually just left his bag on the bed and was going to help the girl carry her things. Just then, he had said that his grandpa told him that there were a lot of thieves outside. Yet now, just after one conversation, he was already very trustful toward Yi Mo. Yi Mo nodded and said, Just go, I'll look after your stuff. However, Wang Yan looked complicatedly at the 3 and went back to her bed. She didn't talk anymore, but was contemplating whether she should boil the herbs Yi Mo gave her or not. Soon, the girl moved her stuff over. It was just a case and a bag. This girl was very talkative and enjoyed a conversation with Yi Mo and Yu Eru. However, Wang Yan didn't talk much, as if something was on her heart. From their conversation, Yi Mo learned that this girl was still studying in Luotsang at the Jiangnan Medical University. Her name was Yang Yi. She was in her 3rd year and was specializing in practical medicine. The 3 enjoyed a good conversation, and soon the train had reached Beijing. Wang Yan bid the 3 farewell and quickly got off the train. After the train had arrived at Zheng State, the 3 got off the train and changed their train to Luotsang. However, believing that Yi Mo had lost all his money, Yang Yi insisted on buying a ticket for Yi Mo. In the end, Yi Mo had no choice but to take out a stack of 10,000 telling her that his money wasn't stolen. Only then did Yang Yi back down. There weren't any accidents when buying the tickets, and the 3 only used about half an hour time to get on the train from Zheng State to Luotsang. This time there were no beds but only chairs, and Yu Eru had insisted on paying his own ticket, so Yi Mo didn't stop him. Brother Mo, I heard that you need some certificate to practice medicine in the big cities. If we start a clinic in Luotsang, will we be checked? Yu Eru seemed to not know how the world worked, and had been simply instilled some simple knowledge before he had left. Of course, you need a certificate. Otherwise, you would be judged as a fraudulent doctor. Before Yi Mo could reply, Yang Yi answered. Yi Mo knew that he needed this, but now, as long as he had money, any certificate was easy to make and wasn't too worried. Brother Mo and Eru, you both don't have a phone. How will I contact you later on? Yang Yi got along well with Yi Mo and Yu Eru, but she was the only one to have a phone out of the 3 and saw that Yi Mo was definitely someone who wouldn't take the initiative to call another, so she asked, When Brother Mo and I have found a place to stay, we'll call you. Yu Eru had a good impression of Yang Yi. Okay, Eru, you must remember to call me. I don't have any people I know in Luotsang. Knowing you and Brother Mo will make things easier when I need help in the future. Yang Yi said, half-jokingly. For Yang Yi, although Yi Mo looked a little ugly with a mark on his face, she felt comfortable talking to him and stayed with him. The 3 got to know each other better and better as they traveled, and after a few hours, the train finally arrived at the Luotsang station. Yi Mo and Yu Eru arranged to meet up in the future with Yang Yi and separated at the station. Chapter 93. Do you think you can leave? Chapter 93. Do you think you can leave? Ninghai. For a few days, Ning Qingxue, who couldn't rest properly, finally calmed down. Whether it was the TV or the online news, they showed that the perpetrator of the case a few days ago had already fled Ninghai, and now the police patrol in Ninghai had obviously calmed down. All these signs had meant that Yi Mo had really left Ninghai. Su Wei, I want to leave a few days. Can you look after the flowers I had planted here, especially this smallest one? Ning Qingxue was just talking to Su Wei when Li Mumei came from Su Jingwen's place. Hearing Ning Qingxue's words, Li Mumei was immediately rejoicing. Qingxue, you want to go back to Yu State? However, Ning Qingxue shook her head. No, I just want to go out by myself and ease my feelings, and it's too boring staying at Ninghai all the time. She didn't even tell Li Mumei where she was going. Qingxue, aren't you going back to Yu State? How about I go with you? Li Mumei immediately felt things weren't right after hearing Ning Qingxue's words. After all, Ning Qingxue had never been to other places alone, so where would she be going? Su Wei already knew that Ning Qingxue's identity wasn't ordinary, and she seemed to have something weird going on with Yi Mo, and although she never asked about it, she was still able to tell. And now Ning Qingxue wanted to go out and even asked her to look after the flowers. It was not that she had a problem with it, and besides, she knew that this grass was very important to Ning Qingxue. As for why, she had no idea. Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue didn't want to say where she was going, so she could only sigh and stopped asking. 2 days later, Ning Qingxue was finally ready to go and just reminded Su Wei again to look after the grass for her before she left Ninghai. It wasn't convenient for her to carry Yi Mo's case, but she didn't feel safe leaving it at Ninghai, so she could only put the contents in a bag. As for those 3 beads, Ning Qingxue hadn't been able to find a string good enough to connect them, so she could only put them in the bag. She wanted to find the prettiest string and connect these beads before putting it on her wrist. But now she wasn't able to find one, so she could only store it away. The reason she left Ninghai was that the last time Xiaolei came, she said that she had met Yi Mo in Flowing Snake. So Ning Qingxue wanted to check there since, in her opinion, Xiaolei saw Yi Mo in Flowing Snake, so it meant that Yi Mo could quite possibly go back there again. She had done her research, and Flowing Snake was a place close to the border, a very chaotic location and good for escaping. Although she had thought more than once that Flowing Snake was too dangerous, she reminded herself that if it hadn't been for Yi Mo, she would have been long dead. So what if she died again? Besides, she also understood that if she didn't actively look for Yi Mo and just stayed in Ninghai, perhaps she wouldn't be able to see Yi Mo in her lifetime. She had a feeling that Yi Mo wouldn't come looking for her. Although she didn't know why Yi Mo came back to Ninghai last time, she was sure that Yi Mo didn't come for her. She noticed that her feelings for Yi Mo were getting more and more complicated. Initially, she had only wanted to use him. Then she felt guilty and wanted to apologize and compensate him. However, afterward she was hurt while protecting the grass, and it was Yi Mo that treated her. She felt grateful toward him and even wanted to live with him like this for the rest of her life. But she felt that the more she understood him, the farther away she was from him. She was becoming a stranger to him, yet she wanted to understand him more. There wasn't a direct trip to Guilin from Ninghai, but there was a flight to the Xian Mountain, and from there, Ning Qingxue could go directly to Guilin. Nothing troublesome happened from Ninghai to Guilin. However, after arriving there, Ning Qingxue realized that she couldn't even find a ride to Flowing Snake. No matter how much money she offered, no one wanted to take her to Flowing Snake, and most of them even tried to persuade her that a girl like her shouldn't go to Flowing Snake by herself. However, Ning Qingxue was determined to go there, so in the end, she had no choice but to go to a rental company and rent a Volkswagen. She was ready to drive herself to Flowing Snake. Although a ride to Flowing Snake was very hard to find, the route could be easily asked for. After 2 hours, Ning Qingshue's car had gone into the twisted mountain paths, and she realized that she hadn't even gone half the way through. But it was already 5 p.m. After another bumpy 2 hours, Ning Qingxue realized that the road started to become flatter, and it was more desolate around. The howls of beasts could be heard from time to time, and the wind was blowing crazily on the trees. Being anxious, Ning Qingxue drove faster and faster. "Big brother, I didn't think there would be a car this late. Should we move?" In a patch of forest that Ning Qingxue could not see, a few pair of eyes were already gazing at her. The man called Big Brother waved his hand and said, "No need, we still have other business tonight. Plus, a person who drives this model probably doesn't have much loot anyway. And that Fong Nan's reach is really extensive now. There's no need to expose us for this type of car." Ning Qingxue would never imagine that she had avoided a disaster just because of the model of car she was driving. When she finally arrived in Flowing Snake, it was already around 9 p.m. The fatigued Ning Qingxue carried her bag and prepared to find a place to stay for the night and look for Yimo's news tomorrow. Flowing Snake was not without its hotels, but they were mostly for those bandits or merchants at the borderline, and those who are able to do illegal business here weren't normal people. These hotels not only had a place to live, but also provided a bar for people to drink downstairs. So as soon as Ning Qingxue walked into the nearest hotel, she immediately attracted the eyes of almost everyone in the hotel. Flowing Snake did have a few women, but this was the first time that a girl who was as white, young, and beautiful came. Those who could survive in Flowing Snake had their heads in their hands, and these people were drunk almost every day. So as soon as they saw Ning Qingxue, all the people set their gazes on Ning Qingshue's body, even the 2 women that were there. Ning Qingxue looked at the countless eyes of hungry wolves and felt cold shivering uncontrollably. As though seeing Ning Qingxue shiver, a 30-year-old man sitting at the bar had lights shining out of his eyes. He carried a cup and walked over. "Girl, you're staying overnight? Don't worry, with me here, no one would dare to hurt you. Boss, get me the best room for this girl, it's on me." As soon as this man came over and talked, a lot of people immediately went quiet. Their lustful eyes also had some sympathy. Everyone knew that this person was called Wei. In fact, he has another title, Echidna. Not only was he cruel, but very hard to deal with because even Fong Ning couldn't do anything about the power behind him. Most importantly, this person was extremely lustful, and countless girls died at his hands. "No need, I'm going to another place." Ning Qingxue turned back and was about to leave. "Do you think you can leave? Girl, don't get cocky with me." Wei saw Ning Qingxue with a pale face wanting to leave, so he immediately threw his cup on the ground and folded his arms, standing at the door staring coldly at Ning Qingxue. "You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.